Chapter 1835. Earth-shattering shield bash looked particularly arrogant, but it was a skill for tanks after all. It had a slow activation time and was extremely easy to dodge. As top-tier professional players, the members of Team Arilang were naturally the best of the best. Although Yin Lao Air's appearance was a little abrupt and caught everyone off guard, everyone's instincts allowed them to complete their positioning subconsciously when Yin Lao Air released his skill. Earth-shattering shield bash's skill spread out in the shape of a meter. In order to dodge, everyone's original two-horizontal formation quickly switched to a circle, accurately avoiding the attack trajectory of earth-shattering shield bash. Such high-end micromanipulation made everyone exclaim in excitement. This was the maneuver that a top-tier expert in an S-rank professional league team should have. However, seeing that Team Arilang had moved into a circle, Yin Lao Air's face showed a plan work smile. As soon as he landed, he quickly canceled earth-shattering shield bash. Almost at the same time, he raised his middle finger and activated group taunt, shouting, "Bastard!" Walala. Following Yin Lao Air's shout, everyone in Team Arilang was forcibly pulled in front of Yin Lao Air. Not good. We've been tricked. No one who could make it to the professional league was a fool. After being taunted by Yin Lao Air, the members of the Alilang squad immediately realized their opponent's intention. Immediately, rays of dispelling light lit up on everyone's body, forcefully breaking the control state of the taunt. Then, they dispersed in all directions without looking back. Boom! However, at this moment, a black circle broke out from the bottom to the top. Spring Source Dark Boundary encircled everyone in Team Arilang, including Yin Lao Air. Thunderstorm. Before everyone could react, Mingdu raised his staff and the name of the awakening skill lit up above his head. A mass of pitch-black clouds instantly enveloped everyone within the dark boundary of darkness. Boom! 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 Bolts of purple lightning as thick as a water bucket fell from the sky and bombarded Ararang and the others. Although Ming Du's control couldn't compare to these master professionals, he was still an extreme in terms of spell power. He had stacked his lightning attribute to more than 500 points. In addition, he had a full set of equipment that increased the strength of his magic, and he had added points to all of his intelligence. As a result, Bright's explosive damage was unparalleled in all of Rebirth. Not to mention PvP players, even bosses would be skinned alive if they were hit by Mingdu's awakening. To disperse Yin Lao Air's taunt, everyone's dispel skills had already entered cooldown. With Chunxian's crowd control skill, it was only natural that they had no way of dodging the skill. After the Cloud Storm was released, all the squishy professions of the Alilang squad were bombarded and sent out of the arena. Only March Frost, the Shield Warrior, and June Snow, who had invulnerability, had survived. He's still alive? Quanjin's members were surprised to see that someone had managed to escape from Mingdu's awakening skill. Grab some points. To place one's pride yelled and jumped toward June Snow. Famous swordsman Shui, Dark North Fish, and Bao San were not willing to fall behind. Yin Lao Air was in a favorable position. He turned around and smashed a shield at June Snow, who was closer to him. Before Yin Lao Air could hit June Snow, March Frost raised her hand and used taunt on Yin Lao Air. Caught off guard. Yin Lao Air was pulled in front of him by March Frost. June Snow took a step forward and rushed behind Yin Lao Air. She used a ring slash to stun Yin Lao Air. Then, she raised her hands and lifted Yin Lao Air into the air. Zla! An ear-piercing sound rang out. The sword in June Snow's left hand rose into flames, while the sword in her right hand rose into the air. She raised both swords together, and a red and purple dragon appeared behind Yin Lao Air, lifting Yin Lao Air high into the air. Then, the two swords separated and stabbed down into Yin Lao Air's shoulders, directly stabbing Yin Lao Air into the ground. Thunder Flame Sword. Rising Dragon slash. Collapsing Mountain slash. There was no doubt about the strength of a top-tier player. Although a dual-wielding player could only deal 80% damage with one hand, with two swords, the damage was 160%, which was more than half the strength of an ordinary warrior. Not only did the three ultimate skills hit Yin Lao air to the ground, but the health bar above his head was also instantly reduced to 50%. Seeing this scene, Team Perfect couldn't help but sigh. Everyone knew better than anyone just how high Yin Lao air's defense was. Jon Snow's three ultimate skills were enough to take half of a life out of a ruthless player like Yin Lao air. If it were anyone else, they would most likely be dead by now. It was just that this guy had a screw loose in his head. Wasn't a waste to use a high-level skill on a tank. By the time Yin Lao air was smashed into the ground, To Place One's Pride's group of 4 had already arrived in front of Jon Snow and pounced at her. Chiu Yoshua calmly took a step back. Duong. At this moment, a burly figure raised his shield and jumped in front of Jon Snow. He slammed the shield into the ground, activating shield wall. Bang, 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 bang. An enormous shield phantom appeared and blocked the path of To Place One's Pride's group of 4. Their attacks were interrupted and they were stunned. When the time came, Liyue Shui spread her arms, brandished her 2 long swords, and activated Whirlwind Slash, charging towards the 4 of them. Fish Biming and Bao San reacted quickly. Seeing Jon Snow's Whirlwind Slash, Fish Biming crawled into the ground. Bao San also used Triple Slash to move to the side. To Place One's Pride was a bit more pitiful. He had jumped quickly and was the closest to Jon Snow. Before he could react, Jon Snow had already sent him flying. Dying. Seeing this, Mingdu raised his staff and a bolt of lightning descended from the sky. Jon Snow canceled her Whirlwind Slash and thrust her left hand forward, flicking upwards. Famous Sword Snow was sent flying over his head. Boom! Famous Sword Snow was blasted out of the arena by his teammate. Fuck! Seeing Mingjian Daoshua die, Mingdu's face paled, and he hurriedly retracted the staff in his hand. At the end of the day, his opponent was a peak-class expert who was far stronger than him. Mingdu's skill simply wasn't enough. Moreover, with Mingdu's random damage skills, it was very likely that he would first kill his teammates before he killed his opponent. After killing Famous Sword Snow, Jon Snow turned around and stabbed her swords into To Place One's Pride's back. She then somersaulted to the side to avoid Yang Na and Exquisite Dream's arrows. To Place One's Pride's entire body was lifted high into the air. At the same time, she exerted strength in her hands, and the 2 swords glowed with a red and a purple light. A line of words also lit up above Jon Snow's head. Sky-piercing cross. Awakening skill. P.S. It's so cold today, my snot is coming out my nose. / 4/44613/. Chapter 1836. Generally speaking, an awakened skill was a player's strongest damage output skill. Moreover, the awakened skill was tailored to the player's awakened quest completion rating. As a top-class expert, Jon Snow's awakened skill was naturally very powerful. Kacha! Flames and lightning formed a giant X in the air, and the pitiful student To Place One's Pride was cut in half by Jon Snow, turning into a white light and disappearing into the air. In the blink of an eye, 2 members of the ragtag team had been killed. Now that Yin Lao air was under Jon Snow's hands, Mingdu and Yang Na did not dare to act rashly. Chun Xiang commanded his evil spirits and Bao San to surround Jon Snow and March Frost. Who would have thought that the 2 of them would stand back to back, one attacking and the other defending? The 2 of them were able to forcefully resist the attacks of Bao San and the others, and not only did they not lose, they even had the upper hand. 3 of Spring Source evil spirits had already been killed by Liyue Shui, and at this rate, it was only a matter of time before Bao San and the others were defeated. In the end, they were top-class experts. Their standards far exceeded everyone's expectations. Wu Ji also knew that his opponents were experts. However, he did not expect them to be this strong. If this situation continued, the advantage he had gained from the previous wave of attacks would be lost. Are we really going to counterattack? Shocking Thunder clenched his fists, excitement on his face as he watched the situation take a turn for the worse. In a desperate situation, the 2 of them had defeated an opposing team. This would be a classic scene that would be recorded in the history books in any tournament. Was everyone going to witness the birth of a miracle today? The spectators in the arena also cheered, "Go, go, go, Ararang." Even the viewers of the local server were secretly cheering for Jon Snow and Lu Yu. It could be seen just how unpopular a motley team was in the international arena. The players of a national server even unanimously agreed that such a shameful team could not represent the national team. While everyone was distracted, Jon Snow had killed another 3 of Chun Xiang's evil spirits. "Oomph." Wuji smiled faintly and said, "I wanted to play with you guys for a while longer. It seems like we can't hold back anymore." After saying that, Wuji looked at Wang Yu and Evildoers Run Wild and said, "I didn't want you two to fight, but I didn't expect this group of trash to be so useless. Don't embarrass me." "Trash." Wang Yu and the other man rolled their eyes at Wuji in unison, then leaped up and charged forward one after the other. "Disperse." Seeing Wang Yu and Xiao Luo rush over, Chun Xiang let out a long sigh and snapped his fingers at the evil spirits under him. His subordinates immediately turned into clouds of green mist and made way for Wang Yu and Xiao Luo. Bao San and Baiming Yu also activated their movement skills, escaping from the battle and running towards the edge of the stage. In Lauer no longer resisted. He lay down on the ground and put away his shield. Yeah. Seeing the motley crew surrounding them suddenly scatter, Chiyu Shui and Lu Yu felt quite confused. They had no idea what those people were doing. When they saw the 2 grandmasters of combat charging at them, they immediately raised their weapons and went up to meet them. Jun Shui's speed was slightly faster. In the blink of an eye, she was already in front of Wang Yu with her 2 swords. She swung the long sword in her right hand and slashed at Wang Yu. Unhurriedly, Wang Yu raised her left hand and grabbed Chiyu Shui's right wrist. Then she squeezed it. Jun Shui felt as if her right hand was electrocuted. She almost lost her grip on the weapon in her hand. In a panic, she stabbed at Wang Yu with her left sword. The longer the weapon, the slower it would be to attack. Jun Shui wielded a long sword. Her attack speed was naturally incomparable to Wang Yu's. Before Jun Shui's long sword could strike, Wang Yu's right palm had already landed on her chest. Bam! Lu Shui was forced to retreat after taking a direct hit from Wang Yu. Wang Yu followed closely behind. Jun Shui also reacted. She stomped on the ground and used charge as she retreated. She immediately changed direction and charged at Wang Yu. Interesting. Wang Yu's eyes lit up when he saw that Jun Shui had some skills. Wang Yu was in hot pursuit, and it was already too late for her to dodge. Thus, she reached out with both hands and used a knee strike to accurately grab both of Liu Shui's ears. Then, she pulled him down as well. Knee strike was a grab skill with high priority. Jun Shui was also in charge, so the pull and the impact force was doubled. At that moment, Wang Yu suddenly raised his knee and used rushing knee. Bam! With a muffled sound, Wang Yu's knee smashed into Chiyu Shui's forehead. The powerful impact instantly penetrated the back of Chiyu Shui's head. Lu Shui's HP bar was already not full after the fierce battle with Bao San and the others. Now that she had taken a vicious hit from Wang Yu, Lu Shui did not even have time to make a sound before she was killed on the spot by Wang Yu's knee. On the other side, March Frost met Evildoers Run Wild, who was chasing after her with heavy steps. March Frost did not say a word when faced with a Grandmaster of Combat who was not much faster than her. She raised her shield and charged at Evildoers Run Wild. The demon's rampage had put all of his attribute points into full strength, so he wasn't as agile as Wang Yu. When he saw March Frost charging at him, the demon's rampage didn't dodge. Instead, he stomped his feet on the ground and steadied himself. He then threw a punch at March Frost with his right fist. Boom! With a loud bang, Evildoers Run Wild's sandbag-sized fist smashed into March Frost's shield. Between the two of them, one was a strength-based heavy armor profession, while the other was a Grandmaster of Combat who focused on strength. Both of them were heavyweights with power. In just one round of fighting, everyone could feel the clash of power across the screen. March Frost was a tank class, after all. She mainly focused on constitution and supplemented it with strength. Although she used charge, which had a higher priority, she was still no match for Evildoer's Run Wild. Gotcha! The ground under Evildoer's Run Wild's feet cracked from the powerful force, and March Frost took a few steps back from the punch. Evildoer's Run Wild's sturdy shield also had a huge fist-shaped dent in it. F***CK. Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Breaking charge with one hand. This Grandmaster of Combat's judgment was too F***king terrifying. It was important to know that charge was a warrior's skill with a very high priority. It was also the most practical control skill for warriors. If it was not for the fact that the skill had a higher priority, it would be impossible to withstand the charge. Evildoer's Run Wild had actually knocked March Frost back a few steps in the middle of the charge. Such a high priority was unheard of. As for March Frost, she was so shocked that she did not know what to say. Chapter 1837. As a top-notch expert, February Frost had absolute confidence in his abilities. If he didn't resort to tricks, February Frost was confident that he could take on all the top-notch professional players in the arena without being at a disadvantage. However, after just one round of fighting, February Frost had developed a fear of the Grandmaster of Combat in front of him. After these few matches, not only February Frost, but most of the people in the arena had some misunderstandings about the ragtag team. They thought that this group of amateurs only knew how to play tricks and that their true abilities were just SOSO. However, everyone had overlooked the most important point. The local players made up 30% of the players in Rebirth, and the local teams were also full of experts. How could the ragtag team, as an amateur contestant, make it all the way to the S-rank professional league, especially if they only knew how to play tricks? After all, the most important thing in a match was individual skills. Without hard abilities, they would be eliminated no matter how good they were at playing tricks. It was obvious that the two Grandmasters of Combat on the field were the trump cards of the motley mob squad. Oh, not bad. At that moment, Evildoer's Run Wild was also very surprised. Evildoer's Run Wild had encountered many expert shield warriors, but it was the first time that Evildoer's Run Wild had met someone as good as February Frost. As he spoke, Evildoer's Run Wild stomped on the ground and charged at February Frost with collapsing fist. Huh. Expert against expert. February Frost's fighting spirit was also ignited. He grabbed his shield with both hands and smashed it on the ground, activating shield wall. At the same time, he hooked his arm and used taunt on Evildoer's Run Wild. Taunt was a proper pulling skill, and its high priority was irreversible. After being pulled by February Frost, Evildoer's Run Wild's collapsing fist was forcefully interrupted, and his entire body was sucked on a February Frost shield. After sucking Evildoer's Run Wild, February Frost tilted his shield and smashed it on the ground from top to bottom. At the same time, a row of words floated above February Frost's head. Awakening, strength of the mountains, crush. Evildoer's Run Wild, who was sucked into the shield, suddenly felt an irresistible force pressing down on him. A Grandmaster of Combat was a squishy class, and their HP was not much higher than assassins. Evildoer's Run Wild was also a Grandmaster Combat, who put all his stat points into strength. If he was crushed by this attack, he would probably lose his life. In the blink of an eye, Evildoer's Run Wild extended his arms and grabbed the edges of February Frost's shield with both hands. At the same time, he leaned back and exerted force. February Schwang was pulled up from the ground by Evildoer's Run Wild. The two of them spun several times in the air like windmills. Boom! With a loud noise, February Schwang and his shield were thrown to the ground by Evildoer's Run Wild. Awakening Death Tornado Wheels. First, he was hit by Mingdu's Awakening. Then he was surrounded by Bao San and the rest. February Schwang did not have much HP to begin with. When he was hit by Evildoer's Run Wild's Death Tornado Wheels, the HP bar above his head dropped to less than 20%. After landing, Evildoer's Run Wild did not stop at all. He turned his body sideways and used cloud levitation. February Schwang was kicked out of the air. At that moment, the monster Hung Xing leaped into the air and landed right above Eryu Schwang, then stomped down heavily. Sky-shattering kick. Duong. February Schwang was stomped down from the air, and a huge crack appeared on the ground. Both Cloud Levitation Kick and Sky Shattering Kick were very powerful and rare skills for Grandmasters of Combat. No matter how tough February Schwang was, he was turned into a ball of white light after taking a full set of skills from an expert like Evildoer's Run Wild, who put all his stat points in strength. As February Schwang was stomped to death, a system notification popped up. Match ended. Winner, Ragtag Team. There was total silence in the stadium. A few seconds later, there was a round of applause and cheers from the audience. Not only the audience from the local server, but even the audience from the Korean server exclaimed sincerely. The audience's eyes were sharp, and it was obvious who was better and who was worse. If the Ragtag Team had played petty tricks in the last match, even if they won the match, they would still be looked down upon by everyone. However, the tactical maneuver in the last match had saved some face for the Ragtag Team that originally had an extremely low reputation, especially the last 2-on-2 maneuvers between the two Grandmasters of Combat and the Warrior. The crushing strength of the two brothers, Wang Yu, made everyone in the stadium gasp in amazement, and they were sincerely convinced. Since the beginning of the game's open beta, the Grandmasters of Combat have been a lowly profession. Compared to a powerful profession like the Warrior, they were almost negligible. However, as soon as the two Grandmasters of Combat made their moves, they revealed the unparalleled charm of this profession. Everyone could not help but sigh. It turned out that this profession was not only handsome, but it could also be so powerful. This was what a winner should look like. With such experts around, it was not a fluke that Ragtag Team could defeat Arilang Squad. The Grandmaster of Combat that I fought with was really powerful. Even February Schwang, who was in the audience, could not help but exclaim in admiration. I never expected him to counterattack with Hellfire Wheels when I used my Awakening skill. His reaction and maneuvers are unheard of. That's nothing. June Snow, who was at the side, also said with certainty, the Grandmaster of Combat that I fought with was even more powerful. No way. February Schwang said in surprise. Are you trying to find an excuse for your failure? June is right. At this moment, March Wind interrupted. You didn't see it at that time. Your opponent even used his Awakening skill against you, who was at critical health. However, the Grandmaster of Combat that fought June Snow didn't even use his ultimate skill. This, after listening to March Wind's words, February Schwang's face suddenly revealed a shocked expression. After being partners with June Snow for so long, February Schwang was well aware of June Snow's abilities. Although Evildoer's Run Wild defeated him, the kid also used his Awakening skill and various ultimate skills. It was obvious that even if he was weak, he was not that much weaker. However, Wang Yu did not even use his ultimate skill to kill June Snow. It was obvious that he was more than a level stronger than June Snow. In terms of PK ability, a dual-wielding warrior was much stronger than a shield warrior. Moreover, June Snow's health was much higher than his at that time. It was a level higher than a peak professional. Just how terrifying was this existence? Experts had a unique vision. Not only Arilang Squad, but the other squads were also shocked by Wang Yu's strength. Needless to say, 9-State Squad had always been a shadow in their hearts. They even thought of using such a stupid tactic to ban Wang Yu for a one-on-one exchange. As for the BTR Squad, they were even more shocked when they saw the strength that Wang Yu had just displayed. Chapter 1838. In all fairness, they were all top-notch experts, and Chiyue Shui wasn't much weaker than the others. Since Wang Yu could kill Chiyue Shui so easily, then killing the others would be as easy as lifting a finger. In terms of technique and operation, top-notch experts had absolute confidence in themselves, believing that they were already at the pinnacle of the game. It was easy to imagine how these top-notch experts felt when they suddenly discovered that there was someone who was a level higher than the pinnacle. I knew it. 5 Lakes 4 Seas shook his head lightly. It's not that easy for a motley crew to lose. I know this Iron Ox better than anyone else. 2 or 3 experts of our level are no match for him. The victory of the motley crew allowed everyone to see that Xuanjin was not only good at scheming. Even a top-notch team like BRT could not help but pay attention to this opponent that they had once used as their cheerleader. After the first round of the competition ended, it was followed by a short break between BRT and 2 days first rate. As a veteran team that was as famous as 9 states, BRT's strength was unquestionable. 2 days first rate's level of individual skill trained in a single-player game was not weak, but in terms of teamwork and tactical coordination, they were much weaker than professional players. This group of people had a one-track mind. The tank charged, the DPS blasted, the tank charged, the DPS blasted, the tank charged, the DPS blasted, and the DPS blasted. In the arena, such an inflexible playstyle was naturally no match for the ever-changing BTR players. Compared to the boring matches of the motley crew, the pace of the second round of the competition was much faster and more exciting. The first 5 rounds took 10 minutes, the second 5 rounds took 30 minutes, and the third round took less than 5 minutes before 2 days first rate was completely defeated. With a stunning record of 3 complete victories, BTR successfully qualified for the next round in less than an hour. The Chuanjin team was also dumbfounded. F***CK, this group of Koreans is really good. They're practically crushing their opponents. To place one's pride had not seen much of the world. He could not help but sigh when he experienced the strength of top-notch experts in person. Nonsense. Baosen rolled his eyes at to place one's pride. This is a world-class top-notch expert. He must be strong. Actually, a weak opponent is also the key. Wuji smiled and added, "Of course, these guys are much stronger than we thought. In the end, they are still professional players. Even if we chose this as our class, the highest level we can reach is probably only at this level. Our interest is even lower than theirs," Chun Xiang said seriously. In fact, one could not blame the author for deliberately weakening the strength of the Chuanjin experts. It was mainly because their current opponents were too strong. Chuanjin was definitely an expert amongst normal people, but in front of pro players, they had no advantage at all. Right now, in front of them were top experts amongst pro players. The difference was like how Chuanjin looked at the so-called elites of Blood Alliance. They weren't even on the same level. After all, the members of Chuanjin were all amateurs. Everyone had their own jobs, and the game was just a social platform for them to kill time and earn some pocket money. Pro players made a living doing this. They had powerful support groups, and all the heavy training they had to do every day was to hone their skills. If the members of Chuanjin could casually surpass the top experts in the industry, then the standard of the pro league would be too low. In the future, who would still treat esports as a profession? As the saying goes, don't use your hobbies to challenge someone else's rice bowl. To be able to become a pro player, one's talent would only be higher than the members of Chuanjin. There is no need to talk about how Wang Yu and evildoers Run Wild were stronger than pro players. Their skills mainly came from their kung fu. The two of them had been training since they were young and had never stopped for decades. The professionalism and intensity of their training were far above that of pro teams. Therefore, it was reasonable that Wang Yu and the others were stronger than pro players. If pro players could reach Wang Yu's level after a few years of special training, then the kung fu scene deserved to be in such a state. The third round was 9 states against warring states. The result was obvious. 9 states and BTR were old rivals. They were also strong opponents in the pro league. Even in the preliminaries, they had to hold back their energy. Team 9 Regions naturally wasn't convinced that BTR had defeated their opponents in around 40 minutes. After 3 matches, not only did they have the same crushing attitude, they were even faster than BTR by a few minutes. The 3 rounds of competition lasted for a total of 5 hours. The first 3 hours were just a motley crew trying to wear down everyone's patience. The last 2 hours were a quick ending that instantly pushed the atmosphere to its climax. After 3 rounds of competition, the audience's viewing experience was very strange. It felt like a plot that had been foreshadowed for dozens of chapters, but before the plot had developed, the climax had suddenly ended. It left people wanting more. The winners of the 3 rounds of competition had been chosen. Next up was the award ceremony and the host's nonsensical speech. By the time Chuanjin walked out of the venue, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. The competition information of the 3 teams that had advanced today had been sent to the mailboxes of the leaders of the major teams at the same time. Although the competition was over, the people of Chuanjin still had to stay here. This was because the venue of the S-rank Professional League Finals was the Jingdu Stadium. The knockout matches of the American region the day after tomorrow, and the knockout matches of the European region the day after that would be held here. After the end of the knockout matches, the 9 teams that had advanced would still have to fight here. Therefore, until the end of the competition, Wang Yu and the others had to stay here and wait. The people of Chuanjin were all homebodies to the core. Even if they were to travel abroad at public expense, for this group of homebodies, it was just another place to play games. After returning to the hotel, Wang Yu and the others rested for a while. After eating, the first thing they did was put on their gaming helmets and enter Rebirth. At this moment, Rebirth was bustling with noise and excitement. In order to celebrate the 2 teams that had advanced, the gaming company specially put up banners in all the major cities. As the hometown of one of the qualified teams, Yu Huicheng was specially taken care of by the designers. The city walls were filled with posters of the motley crew. Because of this, Yu Huicheng was much livelier than usual. As soon as they entered the game, Wang Yu and the others were shocked by this exaggerated scene. This Longting company was really a businessman. After buying the image endorsement of the motley crew, they spared no effort in promoting it. With such a big promotion, it was obvious that they were striving to maximize the publicity value of Wang Yu and the others. P.S. This is an automatic update. The author's dog has a small fever. He is taking the dog to the infusion. Chapter 1839. Congrats. Not long after they went online, Wang Yu and the others also started to get busy with their messages. The contents of the messages were all the same. They were all congratulating the motley crew for advancing. Of course, there were also a few despicable people who sent sarcastic messages. For example, Dugaju Qiang, this bastard sent a message to Wuji in a weird tone. I saw your match. You guys played well. It was very unique. It cured my insomnia for many years. Dugaju Qiang was also a despicable person. Why did he find Wuji to play with his mouth? Wuji replied indifferently. Your insomnia is caused by your inability to participate in the World Pro League, right? Fuck. Seeing Wuji's message, Dugu Jiuqiang's originally good mood immediately became gloomy. Not good, boss. Someone intruded Dragon Island. Just when Dugu Jiuqiang was feeling gloomy, a lackey suddenly rushed in from outside the door and shouted loudly. What's the rush? Dugu Jiuqiang waved his hand and said, Just kill them. Do you still need to find me for such a small matter? The only way to Dragon Island was through Sky Dragon City. As the lord of Sky Dragon City, Dugu Jiuqiang's World Apocalypse Guild controlled this main road and specially collected toll fees here. Those who dared to come to Dragon Island were naturally not weak. There were many who were dissatisfied with World Apocalypse Guild collecting toll fees. There were at least dozens of people intruding Dragon Island every day. Dugu Jiuqiang was already used to it. He was even somewhat impatient. It's different this time. That lackey anxiously shouted. Those intruders are very powerful. We tried to stop them, but we couldn't. This lackey's words were also very standard. It was fine if they were wiped out, but he still downplayed the fact that they couldn't stop them. It's fine if you couldn't stop them. Since they are all experts, there's no need to get into a deadlock with them. Dugu Jiuqiang indifferently said. It was not without reason that Dugu Jiuqiang was ridiculed by Chuanjin people as Dugu Songxin. After all, as the guild leader of a major guild, Dugu Jiuqiang had to be much steadier in his actions. He definitely couldn't act as willfully as Chuanjin's group. At the very least, when it came to dealing with experts, the solitary 9 spears was much more lenient. After fighting with Chuanjin for so many years, Dugu Jiuqiang also knew how troublesome it was to provoke a small group of masters. Of course, this did not rule out the fact that they were afraid of Wang Yu. But, hearing Dugu Jiuqiang's words, the lackey scowled and said, Those guys killed over 100 of our brothers, and even mocked us for being trash in the apocalypse. What? As soon as the lackey said this, Dugu Jiuqiang's anger flared up. Dugu Jiuqiang had seen a lot of people barging into the Void Gate. The reason why people barged into the Void Gate was because they felt that the teleportation fee was too high. Dugu Jiuqiang was also well aware of this. Therefore, if there were experts that could barge into the Void Gate, Dugu Jiuqiang was also not willing to offend them. Most of the time, he would turn a blind eye to it. Those experts that barged into the Void Gate were not fools. They could definitely see through Dugu Jiuqiang's thoughts. After all, there were tens of thousands of people in the apocalypse. If they really wanted to target someone, a small team naturally wouldn't be a match for the apocalypse. Therefore, as time passed, there was an unwritten rule for Sky Dragon City to go to Dragon Island. That was, those with money would spend, and those with ability would use their ability. When trying to break through the Void Gate, everyone would show mercy to the apocalyptic world players who blocked their way. However, this time, the people actually didn't follow the rules. Not only did they kill people, but they also ridiculed them. Such behavior directly changed the nature of the matter. In the game, people could be resurrected, so life wasn't too valuable. However, killing people and provoking others, this was a problem of character. In the apocalypse, he was also a local tyrant. When had he ever been humiliated like this? Dugu Jiuqiang had just been snubbed by Wu Ji and had nowhere to vent his anger. At this moment, when he heard that someone was provoking the apocalypse, Dugu Jiuqiang's anger was ignited. Damn it! I can't take care of Chuanjin dog, but can I take care of you? Too arrogant. Dugu Jiuqiang asked angrily. Where are they now? However, before the lackey could answer, suddenly, Dugu Jiuqiang's message bar lit up. Dugu Jiuqiang opened it and saw a message from Light Brother appearing in front of him. Boss, it's not good. Someone stole the boss. Evil Dragon Moffat was attacked. Who has the guts to steal a boss with an owner? Dugu Jiuqiang, who received the message, was stunned and replied with a frown. Logically speaking, things like bosses had always been ownerless. However, that was only in the early stages of the game. The big guilds had not yet formed their teams. The leveling area was the guild's important resource. However, when the guild was formed in the game, the bosses became the guild's private property. Of course, the big guilds wouldn't be so big that they would take all the bosses. For example, the big guilds wouldn't be interested in ordinary bosses. Only small guilds would take them. Small guilds wouldn't be interested in those bosses, so as the game progressed, it would be harder for independent players to survive. This was why any expert with a little bit of skill would sharpen their brains and try to get into the big guilds. Big guilds like the Apocalypse with tens of thousands of people would always raise some big bosses as their own resources. Evil Dragon Moffat was one of them. One could imagine how Dugu Jiuqiang felt when he heard that his own boss had been stolen. He felt as if his wife had been slept with by someone else. He was even angrier than when he heard that someone had mocked his own guild. After all, mockery was just a matter of face. A big boss like Moffat was a practical benefit. I don't know, Light Brother said anxiously. I've never heard of these experts. They're not our old rivals. There were not many experts in Rebirth who had the ability to go against the Apocalypse. Moreover, they were all famous experts. The people of the Apocalypse were not unfamiliar with them. At this point, Light Brother sent another message, but judging from their looks, they don't seem to be experts from a national server. I don't care which country they're from, Dugu Jiuqiang said angrily. Even if they're the Emperor of Heaven, they wouldn't be able to steal our boss. Where are they now? Quickly get someone to kill them. At the boss spawn point, Light Brother said, our people are fighting with them. These guys are very strong. We can't hold on much longer. Hold on a little longer. I'll be there soon. After saying that, Dugu Jiuqiang sent a gathering message in the guild channel. He gathered a few hundred people and went to Dragon Island. When Dugu Jiuqiang and his people arrived at the spawn point of Evil Dragon Moffat, Light Brother and his people had already been slaughtered. A group of tall, blonde strangers were talking and laughing as they fought the boss. Attack! Dugu Jiuqiang was also a ruthless person. He did not care who these people were. Seeing that they had already started fighting the boss, Dugu Jiuqiang gave the order to attack without hesitation. Chapter 1840. There's another rat. seeing that Dugu Jiuqiang and the others had launched an attack on them. The guys who stole the boss did not panic. Instead, they looked at Dugu Jiuqiang and the others contemptuously with a trace of disdain on their faces. Loki, seeing that the attack of the apocalypse was about to land on his group, the warrior with long golden hair and a suit of bright silver armor let out a faint cry. Upon receiving the order, the warlock in a gray robe behind the warrior waved his hand. Buzz! A barrier rose out of thin air and blocked all the attacks. Immediately afterward, the warlock in a gray robe pointed his staff at the evil dragon Moffat. Swoosh! In an instant, all the attacks of the apocalypse flew towards Moffat. Bang, bang, bang. With a series of explosions, 1/10 of the health bar on Moffat's head was bombed away. Roar! Moffat roared and rushed towards the people of the apocalypse. F***CK. Seeing that his attack had landed on Moffat, Dugu Jiuqiang could not help but spit out a curse. However, seeing Moffat pouncing towards them, the people of the apocalypse did not panic. Instead, they took a step back in unison as if it was a common occurrence. Clatter! Just when Moffat was about to attack the people of the apocalypse, a strange sound suddenly came from behind Moffat. At the same time, a few faintly discernible transparent chains appeared behind Moffat. Under Moffat's great force, the chains snapped straight. In the background story of the game, Dragon Island was not only the lair of dragons, but also a place of imprisonment. On this island, countless powerful bosses were imprisoned, and the evil dragon Moffat was just one of them. Moffat's neck and limbs were bound here by a few special chains, and his range of movement was very limited. The apocalypse also took advantage of this to raise him like a pig. One had to know that the ordinary monsters on this dragon island were very difficult to deal with, let alone this famous boss. If not for such conditions, with the strength of the apocalypse, it could be said to be wishful thinking to want to trap such a dragon. The ownership of the boss depended on the aggro system. Just now, the warlock called Loki casually waved his hand and transferred the attacks of the people at the end of the world to Moffat. According to the principle of automatic target selection, the evil dragon Moffat's aggro immediately fell on the people at the end of the world. The reason why Apocalypse was here was because of the ownership of the boss. Now that the boss was given back, it could be said that it was exactly what Dugu Jiuqiang wanted. Therefore, the people of the Apocalypse turned their attention to the evil dragon Moffat. Unexpectedly, when the group of people who stole the boss saw this scene, they did not care about the attitude of the Apocalypse. Instead, they looked at the iron chain behind Moffat in surprise and said excitedly, "It's here. Everyone get ready. Loki, open the scroll." Following the silver-armored warrior's order, the warlock Loki behind him took out a gray sheepskin scroll and tore it in half. Roar! As the scroll was torn, the shadow of a giant dragon flew out of the scroll and landed on Moffat's body. Roar! When the shadow landed on Moffat's body, Moffat suddenly let out a loud roar. Next, Moffat's dull gray skin slowly turned dark red and emitted a strange luster. At the same time, Moffat's body also began to expand. Wallalala! In just the blink of an eye, Moffat's body more than doubled. Under Moffat's pull, the originally faintly discernible chain began to materialize. In just a few breaths' time, all the chains behind Moffat appeared. These chains were as thick as an adult's thigh and were engraved with strange magic inscriptions. Under Moffat's tremendous struggle, the light of the inscriptions became weaker and weaker. It was on the verge of collapse and looked like it was about to go out of control. F***CK, what are they doing? Seeing Moffat's sudden increase in strength, Dugu Jiuqiang and the others were stunned. This evil dragon Moffat respawned once a month and had been killed several times in Apocalypse. This was the first time they saw such a situation. Voila! Another strange sound was heard, and the inscriptions on the chains began to shatter one by one. All right, attack! Seeing this, the silver-armored warrior immediately gave the order to attack. Upon receiving the silver-armored warrior's order, Rocky and the others picked up the weapons in their hands and smashed the chains behind evil dragon Moffat. You guys are crazy! Seeing this scene, Dugu Jiuqiang was completely anxious. He quickly pointed at Rocky and the others who were smashing the chains and shouted, "Quick, stop them!" However, it was too late. The moment Rocky used the sheepskin scroll, evil Dragon Moffat had already lost control. Bang! Before the people of Doomsday could react, one of the chains on evil Dragon Moffat's back was forcefully broken. Bang, 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 bang. Following that was a series of sounds of chains snapping. The chains on evil Dragon Moffat's back were all snapped. F***CK. Not to mention the evil dragon M.O. Faye. Even a leash dog that suddenly broke free from its chain would be extremely terrifying. Seeing that M.O. Faye had broken free from his chains, Duggan Nine Spears and the others, who originally wanted to stop him, turned around and ran without saying a word. What a joke! It was not like the people of Apocalypse did not know how strong evil Dragon Moffat was. When this guy was chained up, it was already very difficult to deal with him, let alone now that he had broken free. Now that Moffat's hatred was still on the people of Apocalypse, if they did not run away, they would be waiting for death. Roar! Having broken free, Moffat was obviously not in the mood to care about this group of weak small fries. Having regained his freedom, he roared excitedly, and 2 streams of tears flowed down his eyes. It's been 2,000 years. I'm finally free. What does it feel to be free? Just as Moffat was feeling excited about regaining his freedom, a voice suddenly came from behind him. Eh. Hearing this, Moffat was slightly stunned. He quickly turned his head and saw a warrior with long golden hair and bright silver armor standing behind him. The warrior looked up and said, "Moffat, I'm Uranus, the one who released you. You should listen to my orders now." Reptile. Seeing the silver-armored warrior, Moffat bared his teeth and said, "I'm in a good mood today. I don't want to kill anyone. Get lost." "Oh." Uranus frowned and said, "You ugly lizard. Have you forgotten who released you?" "None of my business." Moffat said coldly, "Anyway, I'm free now. Are you going to lock me up again?" After that, Moffat ignored Uranus and spread his wings, flying straight into the sky, leaving Uranus and his group with a face full of anger. Chapter 1841. That Untrustworthy Bastard. Looking at evil Dragon Moffat's departing figure, Uranus was so angry that he almost threw the weapon in his hand. F***CK. A bunch of people came all the way to Dragon Island and spent so much effort to release this bastard, but he ran away without even letting out a fart. What the hell was this? Uranus had played games for so long, but he had never suffered such humiliation before. As the saying goes, the more you bear with it, the angrier you get, and the more you take a step back, the more you lose. Uranus said angrily, "We can't let him go just like that. Chase after him." With that said, the group of people put away their weapons and chased after Moffat. "Let's go too." Seeing that the group of people who stole the boss were chasing after Murphy, 9 solitary spears, who was in the distance, also gave the order for the people of Apocalypse to retreat. However, before Dugu Jiuqiang's group could run far, a system notification rang in their ears. System notification. Evil Dragon Moffat has broken the seal. Dragon City is under attack. You have accepted the City Lord's quest to defend the homeland. Defend the homeland, quest rank. A quest details. Repel the evil Dragon Moffat's attack. Quest reward. Main city construction rate plus 50%. Additional reward for killing evil Dragon Moffat. Construction rate will be reset to 0 if the quest fails. Quest background. The evil dragon that has been imprisoned for 1,000 years has finally broken the seal. His rage will destroy everything in Dragon City. F***CK. Seeing the system notification, Dugu Jiuqiang suddenly had the urge to curse. F***CK. Why was Dragon City so plagued with disasters? The game had just started, and Dragon City was the first main city to be massacred by a boss. Not long after, it became the first main city to be flattened by a boss. Not even a year had passed since the game started, and evil Dragon Moffat was attacking it again. Who the F***CK did they offend? Couldn't they change to a different main city? As the only national server that could teleport to Dragon City, it was now flourishing. God knows how much money, resources, and manpower have been expended to build this main city. If it was flattened by a boss, all their efforts over the past 6 months would have been in vain. Dugu Jiuqiang was in a bad mood. Little did they know that Dragon Island was sealed because of the former city, Lord Long Outyin. Not to mention evil Dragon Moffat, all of the dragons were unhappy with Dragon City. If Dragon Emperor Dales wasn't Wang Yu's follower and Dragon City wasn't Yu Huiqing main city, it would have been massacred once a month. Moreover, Heavenly Dragon City was so close to Dragon Island. Even if Dragon Island and Heavenly Dragon City had no grudge against each other, it would still be normal for Heavenly Dragon City to be harassed by so many powerhouses. After all, Heavenly Dragon City had benefited greatly from guarding Dragon Island's teleportation array. How could the system just watch players earn money without getting beaten up? Even if there was no enmity between Dragon Island and Dragon City, it was normal to be harassed by a group of strong players. After all, Dragon City had gained a lot from guarding Dragon Island's teleportation channel. How could the system watch the players earn money and not get beaten up? Of course, Dugu Jiuqiang knew that complaining was useless. After receiving the news, Dugu Jiuqiang immediately gave orders to the players in the city to defend Dragon City. Dragon City was a dragon city under Yu Huiqing. It had to pay taxes to Yu Huiqing every month. Now that Dragon City was in trouble, Yu Huiqing naturally had to protect his subordinates. Wang Yu was the city lord of Yu Huiqing. When Dugu Jiuqiang received the news, Wang Yu also received the system notification. System notification: your Dragon City is under attack by evil Dragon Moffat. You have accepted the quest under the heavens. Under the heavens, quest rank. A quest content: help Dragon City defend its homeland. Quest reward: Dragon City's tax limit increased by 50%. Killing evil Dragon Moffat will result in cancellation of Dragon City's subsidiary rights. Quest background: all lands under the heavens belong to the king. As a lord, you have the responsibility and obligation to protect your people. When Wang Yu and Xuanjin received the system notification, they were on their way to the instance dungeon. Wang Yu immediately stopped when he saw the system notification. This is bad. Wang Yu was shocked. You guys go ahead. I have to go to Dragon City. What's wrong? Hearing Wang Yu's words, the Xuanjin people also stopped. Wu Ji raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is Dugu Jiuqiang looking for your help again? We have to charge him more money this time." "No," Wang Yu said honestly. "Dragon City is under attack by dragons again." As she spoke, Wang Yu displayed the mission that the system had just given her. Attacked again? Seeing the quest Wang Yu showed them, the Xuanjin people were speechless. "How many times has it been?" To place one's pride, asked gloatingly. "Last time, Long Outyin massacred the city. This is the second time, right?" Bullsh *T. Chun Xiang laughed. When the server first opened, Dragon City was massacred by Dragon Blood Spear God once. Tisk, tisk. Everyone sighed. As expected of Dugu Songshin. Even the system can't bear to look at his annoying face. It's a miracle that he can play a game at this level. "You guys go ahead." Wang Yu waved his hand. "It's just an evil dragon. I'll be right back." Tisk, tsk. Hearing Wang Yu's words, everyone sighed again. An evil dragon. Just an evil dragon. Old cow. Can't you save some face for the boss? Meow. No matter in which game, monsters with the word dragon in their names were not to be trifled with. Furthermore, this evil Dragon Moffat was a boss, one that could attack cities. But when Wang Yu said it, it was as if it was a worm. Such an arrogant tone was infuriating. What was even more infuriating was that if it was anyone else who said this, everyone would definitely think that he was acting cool. However, when these words came out of Wang Yu's mouth, it actually sounded so natural and not out of place. "We'll go with you." Seeing that Wang Yu was about to leave, Wu Ji said from the side, "There's no need to trouble you guys. I can do it alone," Wang Yu said confidently. Dragon Emperor Dales could be said to be the strongest among the dragons. Wang Yu was not afraid of even a boss of this level. A mere evil dragon did not sound like a powerful character from its name. "What do you mean, trouble?" Wu Ji smiled. "Dungeons can be fought at any time. It's not so easy to encounter a boss. Moreover, you can't just help that bastard Dugu Jiuqiang defend the city. Wuji knew Wang Yu quite well. With Wang Yu's honesty, he would definitely do a quest to defend the Celestial Dragon City. Helping the apocalypse was also free of charge. Wouldn't it be unfair for a bastard like Dugu Jiuqiang to help him for free? What kind of person was Wuji? As the infamous leader of the Chuanjin cult, he did not want to be taken advantage of. Of course, he would not miss any opportunity to trick Dugu Jiuqiang. Chapter 1842. I'm a martial artist in online games. Currently typing. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1843. Ordinary people had to take an airship to travel from Yu Huicheng to Sky Dragon City. However, Sky Dragon City was Yu Huicheng's subsidiary city. As the city lord, Wang Yu had the authority to teleport directly. With a flash of light, Wang Yu and the rest of Quan Zhen's group appeared in the city lord residence of Sky Dragon City. The Quan Zhen group had just teleported to the city lord residence. Before they could stabilize themselves, Dugu Jiuqiang and the rest had teleported back from Dragon Island. What are you guys doing here? Hurry up and defend the city. There will be monsters attacking the city soon. Seeing someone standing near the teleportation portal, Dugu Jiuqiang berated without even looking at who it was. Hearing Dugu Jiuqiang's voice, Wang Yu turned around instinctively. Huh. Seeing this familiar and terrifying face, Dugu Jiuqiang quivered and swallowed the words he was about to say. After pausing for a moment, Dugu Jiuqiang organized his words and asked in confusion, God Ox, why are you here? At the same time, Dugu Jiuqiang was still secretly guessing, damn it, what are these guys doing here? Are they here to watch the show? I even mocked them just now. Could it be that they're here to kick us when we're down? Dugu Jiuqiang's worries weren't without reason. Given Wuji's character, it was normal for him to kick them when they were down. Just as Wang Yu was about to explain his intentions, Wuji said coldly, what does it have to do with you? To be honest, Dugu Jiuqiang was also a guild leader. He still cared about his reputation in front of so many subordinates. Given Wuji's attitude, if not for Wang Yu, Dugu Jiuqiang would have killed him with a spear. Seeing the awkward situation, Chun Xiang quickly stepped forward and said with a smile, we just finished our match and came to Heavenly Dragon City to take a look. However, it seems that Heavenly Dragon City is not very peaceful. Yeah, Dugu Jiuqiang said, our Heavenly Dragon City is really plagued with disasters, yeah? At this point, Dugu Jiuqiang suddenly paused. Neo deity, are you guys busy now? In a sense, I'm not busy, Wang Yu answered honestly. You have to save our Heavenly Dragon City. Dugu Jiuqiang said with a bitter face, we are being targeted by the evil creatures of the Dragon Island again. The evil dragon Moffat is coming to attack the city soon. Putting aside the evil dragon Moffat's battle prowess, the destructive power of these dragons was unparalleled. Not to mention a big boss like the evil dragon Moffat. Even a small dragon like Long Ao Yin could turn Heavenly Dragon City into scorched earth with just a few dragon breaths. If it was just ganging up on Moffat, it would not be difficult for the tens of thousands of people at the end of the world. However, to stop him from attacking the city was another matter altogether. One had to know that the dragons were very mobile, and it was difficult for ordinary people to keep up with them. Moreover, for a big boss like the evil dragon Moffat, ordinary people would not be able to defeat him without at least 100 people. Therefore, it would not be very effective to deal with Moffat with numbers alone. Building a main city was a very costly matter. After the massacre last time, Heavenly Dragon City had just recovered. If the evil dragon Moffat really spat on the city walls, it would be a waste of money. To stop the evil dragon Moffat from attacking the city while protecting Heavenly Dragon City, the following two factors must be met. First, they must be very mobile. Second, they must be strong enough to stop Moffat. In summary, Chuanjin was definitely the best candidate. There was only to talk about mobility. The members of Chuanjin all had cloaks. Although their flying speed was not as exaggerated as that of the dragons, they were much stronger than other players. If they were not mobile enough, the others would not be able to either. As for strength, Dugu Jiuqiang did not know how strong the other members of Chuanjin were. However, Wang Yu's strength had definitely refreshed Dugu Jiuqiang's understanding time and time again. It was not an exaggeration to say that even if Wang Yu said that he could kill Moffat alone, Dugu Jiuqiang would not dare to doubt it. After all, this man had various high-end records of slaying dragons and gods. The scene of him killing Long Outyin alone was still vivid in Dugu Jiuqiang's mind. Hearing Dugu Jiuqiang's words, Wang Yu did not say anything. Instead, he turned his head to look at Wuji because Wang Yu knew what Wuji was thinking. Wuji raised an eyebrow and glanced at Dugu Jiuqiang. Why? What does your life and death have to do with us? F***CK. Being despised by Wuji, Dugu Jiuqiang became anxious. He pointed at Wuji and scolded. Damn you, Wuji, you old dog. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Did I speak to you? Saying that, Dugu Jiuqiang took out his weapon and was about to stab Wuji. Boss, calm down. Seeing this scene, Light Brother and the others behind Dugu Jiuqiang turned pale with fright. They quickly grabbed Dugu Jiuqiang from both sides and said, "We're in trouble now. Don't make things worse, all right?" Saying that, Light Brother did not forget to look at Wang Yu. No matter how terrifying Evil Dragon Moffat was, it was not worth mentioning in front of a certain someone. If they could not stop Moffat, at most, Celestial Dragon City would be destroyed. If they offended Chuanjin, it would be the end of the world. Dugu Jiuqiang followed Light Brother's gaze and looked at the expressionless Wang Yu next to Wuji. His anger immediately dissipated. He said pitifully, God Ox, we're friends. Celestial Dragon City is also related to you. You can't just watch them die. I didn't say I wouldn't help them. Seeing that the time was right, Wuji said again, but we spent 3 scrolls just to teleport here. Do you think we have to help you just because you talk back and forth? Don't worry about that. Once Wuji relented, Dugu Jiuqiang immediately felt relieved. As long as we can successfully defend the city, money is not a problem. Although Chuanjin was shameless in terms of strength, it was worth it to spend money to hire them to defend the city. Moreover, compared to the zero construction progress, spending money was indeed not a big deal. Of course, money is not a problem. Wuji glanced at Dugu Jiuqiang and said, but this is the end of the world. You have to pay more. Come and fight me, mother of ****. Dugu Jiuqiang was furious again. He pointed his middle finger at Wuji. Retard. Wuji looked at the angry Dugu Jiuqiang as if he was looking at an idiot and said, 100,000 gold per person, plus all the items dropped by the boss. This is our condition. If we can come to an agreement, we will stay and help you. If not, we will return to you Huicheng immediately. 100,000? Why don't you go rob someone? Wang Yu's group had a total of 11 people. 100,000 gold per person would be 1,100,000 gold. If converted to RMB, it would be 11 million. What kind of small fresh meat celebrity was this? His appearance fee was more than 10 million. Hee. Wuji smiled faintly. Robbing someone is too slow to earn money. It doesn't fit our style. Wasn't that so? With Wuji's exorbitant demand, not to mention robbing someone, even kidnapping someone wouldn't earn money so quickly. P.S. I wanted to update 3 chapters, but the counterattacking Mario next door pulled me back and didn't let me write. I'm so angry. The only thing I can do now is to wish everyone a Happy New Year. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version. Chapter 1844. Of course, it was still the end of the world. Money was not a problem. Moreover, it was not a bad deal to hire the top team of the national server for 1 million gold coins. Dugu Jiuqiang was very cunning. Although he said that it was too expensive, he did not even think about it and agreed to it. Dragon Island and Celestial Dragon City were separated by the water. If it were not for the fact that players could not fly to the island, they would not even need a teleportation point. As a dragon, Evil Dragon Moffat's flying speed was unquestionable. While Wang Yu and the others were arguing with Dugu Jiuqiang, a black dot appeared in the distant sky. It was Evil Dragon Moffat. Moffat approached Celestial Dragon City at an extremely fast speed. When everyone saw Moffat's appearance, he was less than 500 meters away from Celestial Dragon City. As an advanced dragon, Moffat was already more than 10 meters tall. Now that his seal had been removed, his strength had skyrocketed, and his size had doubled. Although Celestial Dragon City was not a major city like Holy Light City, it was still a fortress city in the background story. After the reconstruction, the city walls were specially reinforced. Now, the city walls were 17 to 18 meters tall. Even so, Moffat was still a head taller than the city walls of Celestial Dragon City. Under Dugu Jiuqiang's command, the players of the End of the World had already set up a defensive formation on the city walls. However, when they saw Evil Dragon Moffat's huge body, they were shocked. Although it was not necessarily true that a big guy was stronger than a small guy, whether it was in the game or in real life, the most intuitive factor to judge an opponent's strength was their body size. For example, when the thin and weak Mario next door stood next to the author who was 8 feet tall, anyone with a discerning eye would be able to tell who was on the offensive and who was on the defensive. Now, they were facing a huge monster like Evil Dragon Moffat. The city walls were nothing more than a fence in front of Evil Dragon Moffat, and the ballistae and cannons guarding the city were like toys to him. Very soon, Evil Dragon Moffat was within the firing range of Celestial Dragon City's defensive turrets. Attack! As soon as the order was given, the ballistae and cannons on the city walls began to fire at the Evil Dragon Moffat. Moffat's body was so huge that no one needed to aim. However, to everyone's despair, the scales on the Evil Dragon Moffat's body were shockingly high in both physical and magical defense. The ballista was a defensive weapon with extremely high penetrative power. When the ballista hit Moffat's body, it was like being poked by a toothpick. The black scales on Moffat's body flashed, and the attacks from the people on the city wall were immediately bounced off. Roar! Although the harvesting players hadn't dealt any damage to the evil dragon, the fact that these ants had taken the initiative to attack him was the greatest provocation to the evil dragon. Moffat roared angrily. Immediately after, Moffat raised his head and opened his mouth, spewing a mouthful of dragon breath at the city wall. Dragon's breath, -50000. Moffat's mouth was several meters wide. When he spat out the dragon's breath, it covered an area of a dozen or so meters horizontally. The section of Celestial Dragon City's sturdy city wall that was struck by the dragon's breath lost a large chunk of its HP. The players on the city wall, as well as the defensive weapons around them, were instantly incinerated. Crap! Seeing this, the eyes of the players on the city wall nearly popped out of their sockets. Celestial Dragon City's fortified city wall had extremely high defense. Even if players' awakening skills landed on the city wall, they wouldn't have much of an effect. However, Moffat had lost 500,000 HP with a single spit. His attack power was simply outrageous. How were they supposed to fight against him? Setting aside the evil dragon's defense, even the tankiest shield warrior only had several 100,000 HP. With such low attack power, how could they possibly stand up to Moffat? Moreover, this was not a single target attack. It was an AoE skill that covered a wide area of effect. No matter how many players came, they wouldn't be able to deal with such a bug-like opponent. Puny worms. After spitting out the dragon's breath, Evil Dragon Moffat did not forget to taunt them. Is this all you've got? Kneel at the feet of the great Lord Moffat. I'll let you know what it means to. Bang! Before Evil Dragon Moffat could finish his sentence, a figure suddenly descended from the sky. His feet were covered in lightning as he stepped on Evil Dragon Moffat's nose. Thunderstomp. This person was none other than Wang Yu. Wang Yu was a dragon slayer. He had an extremely high suppressive effect on dragon-type monsters. At the same time, Thunderstomp had a strong priority effect. With this stomp, Moffat's words were immediately stomped back into his mouth. F***CK, which god is this? Seeing this familiar skill and the terrifying figure, the players of the apocalypse were instantly dumbfounded. Even Dugu Jiuqiang, who had followed up from the city wall, was extremely shocked. Naturally, Dugu Jiuqiang was well aware of Wang Yu's strength. However, this kick had nothing to do with the level of strength. Everyone had clearly seen evil dragon Moffat's dragon's breath just now. Even if an ordinary person had the same equipment and skills as Wang Yu, they would instinctively retreat in the face of such a terrifying monster. However, Wang Yu took the initiative to kick the arrogant Moffat without even thinking about it. As the saying goes, those who are skilled are bold. What kind of courage was this? What kind of confidence was this? Obviously, Moffat was also stunned by Wang Yu's kick. This beast had never thought that someone would dare to hit his face. Even his father had never hit his face before. Lure him away. Just as Moffat and the players of the Apocalypse were in a daze, Wang Yu received an order from Wuji. Without the slightest pause, Wang Yu stepped on Moffat's nose and rushed forward. He rushed to Moffat's face, then raised his sandbag-sized fist and punched Moffat's eye. Moffat's defense was all on the scale armor. Even the city defense equipment could not penetrate it. However, Moffat's eye did not have scale armor. Duong, with a muffled sound, Wang Yu's entire arm smashed into Moffat's eye socket. -221454, a huge damage value floated up from Moffat's head. Roar. As the punch landed, Moffat let out a tragic roar. His two claws subconsciously slapped down on his face. Goodbye. Seeing this, Wang Yu withdrew his fist, turned around, and jumped off Moffat's head. He used Qin Gong and ran behind Moffat at an extremely fast speed. Trying to run after putting on a show? How could there be such a good thing? Moffat turned around and chased after Wang Yu. Dugu Jiuqiang was also a despicable person. Since Moffat had been lured away, he should just stay put. This bastard thought he had an opportunity and immediately ordered Moffat to attack again. The attacks of the Apocalypse players on the city wall smashed down on Moffat's back. Chapter 1845. Rumble. Magic cannons and arrows landed on Moffat's back, producing loud noises. From Wang Yu's attack just now, it was not difficult to tell that evil Dragon Moffat was covered in scales from head to toe. It was almost immune to physical and magical attacks. If one wanted to hurt evil Dragon Moffat, they would have to hit the parts of its body that were not covered by scales. Although the city defense equipment had strong attack power, its control was far inferior to the player's own skills. Now that Moffat's back was facing the players of the Apocalypse, the damage dealt was naturally negligible. However, for Moffat, although the damage was not high, his behavior was a challenge to the pride of the dragons. Roar. In a fit of rage, Moffat turned his head and roared at the sky. His voice immediately spread in all directions, covering the entire Celestial Dragon City. The monsters around Celestial Dragon City trembled when they heard the roar. As if they had heard a signal, they swarmed toward Celestial Dragon City from all directions. That shameless dragon is over there. At that moment, Uranus and the others also heard Moffat's roar. Uranus pointed in the direction of Moffat and chased after Moffat with a group of his men. After Moffat's roar dissipated, the players of the Apocalypse stood on the city wall and saw the monsters swarming in from all directions. As the main training ground of the players, there were millions of monsters outside Celestial Dragon City. With so many monsters swarming in at the same time, the scene was like a tsunami. As far as the eye could see, there was an endless black mass of monsters. It was a ghastly sight. Oh no, there are monsters attacking from the east. There are monsters attacking from the west too. There are monsters attacking from the north too. When the players on the city wall saw such a terrifying scene, they all sent messages in the channel. When Wuji saw this scene, he pointed at Dugu Jiuqiang and scolded, F***CKU Dugu Jiuqiang. Look at what you've done. Moffat's siege was not a big deal, but it was not a small matter either, because the dragons in the game had always been willful. Sieging a city was just to vent their emotions. All he needed to do was to divert the aggro. Originally, Wuji's original strategy was to let Wang Yu lure Moffat away from Celestial Dragon City. However, Dugu Jiuqiang was such 8B asterisk star that he stabbed Moffat in the back at the critical moment. Now, it directly triggered the monsters to attack the city. Monsters attacking a city was a big deal. Not only were there a lot of normal monsters, but they also had a single goal: Once they received the order to attack, they would not stop until they were dead. After Heavenly Dragon City had been rebuilt, there were less than 100,000 players in the city. More than half of these players were players from the apocalypse. Moreover, the space on the city walls was limited. Only a few thousand players could stand at the same time. Now that millions of monsters were attacking, Heavenly Dragon City would not be able to hold them off. Of course, the players could also take the initiative to leave the city to fight. However, a ruthless dragon like Moffat was standing outside the city gates. A single dragon breath could kill a whole group of people. It would be futile for the players to charge at him. They would just be sending themselves to death. Since the launch of Rebirth, this was obviously the first time that a monster siege had happened in the game. What's going on? It was also the first time that Wang Yu had seen such a situation. Seeing so many monsters rushing to the city walls as if they had gone mad, Wang Yu was dumbfounded. Wuji replied, "The monsters are attacking the city. Old cow, be careful. Try to bring Moffat as far away as possible." Although they had not experienced a monster siege before, Xuanjin and the others had defended the guild encampment before. They knew that when there was a boss, these small monsters would provide a very powerful buff. It was not easy to defend against so many small monsters. Now that they had Moffat's buff, it would be even more difficult for the defending players to defend the city. All right, Wang Yu received Wuji's order and turned around. "You cowardly reptile." Moffat was a highly intelligent AI. His aggro mechanism was naturally different from ordinary small monsters. Not only could he shift aggro at any time, but he could also increase aggro at the same time. After summoning the small monsters to attack the city, Moffat saw that Wang Yu had run back. He cursed and shot a dragon breath at Wang Yu. The scorching heat wave covered Wang Yu's position from top to bottom. Wang Yu raised his head and glanced at Moffat's dragon breath. He rolled forward unhurriedly and rolled to the side of Moffat's big feet. Whoosh! With a gust of wind, the dragon breath swept over Wang Yu's head. This was the disadvantage of being tall. The bigger the body, the more flaws there were. If Moffat was a little smaller, his dragon breath would have destroyed everything in front of him. However, Moffat was extremely tall. When he breathed from top to bottom, there was a space between his head and his feet that could not be covered. Wang Yu's combat mind was very strong. He saw the flaw at a glance and took advantage of the opportunity to roll under Moffat. Moffat's dragon breath was basically useless against Wang Yu. With such a huge body like Moffat's, the skill he used was Armageddon, so his movements would be frozen for a long time. Without waiting for Moffat's skill to finish freezing, Wang Yu quickly switched the gloves in her hands to a long staff. She then stepped on Moffat's foot and jumped up, stabbing the long staff at Moffat's crotch that was not covered by the scales. Everyone here was an ordinary person. They might not have seen a dragon before, but Uncle Neo had to remind them that if they encountered such creatures in the wild in the future, they must remember that the crotch of a dragon was the same as the crotch of a human. It was also a vital part. Therefore, the part of a dragon's crotch that was not covered by scales was only a small part. Wang Yu's strike was ruthless and accurate. -224546. A huge damage value floated up. Roar. Moffat immediately let out a loud roar. Under the intense pain, Moffat's eyes rolled back. Damn reptile. Moffat roared and raised his foot to step on Wang Yu. Wang Yu jumped lightly and landed on Moffat's foot. With Moffat's height, it was extremely difficult for him to step on Moffat's right foot with his left foot. Wang Yu jumped on Moffat's foot. Moffat roared anxiously, but there was nothing he could do. Wang Yu first kicked Moffat's nose, then punched Moffat's eye. He then poked Moffat's penis, directly pulling all of Moffat's aggro onto himself. Now that Moffat could not even hit Wang Yu, one could imagine his resentment toward Wang Yu. Seeing Moffat's appearance, Wang Yu knew that the time was right. He used Qin Gong and flew into the distance. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to escape, Moffat was unwilling to let him go. He spread his wings and followed closely behind. At this time, Uranus had also arrived at the city wall following the sound. F***CK. Seeing Moffat fly away again, Uranus cursed and pointed at Moffat. Continue chasing. Chapter 1846. The monsters attacking the city usually came from afar. The monsters closest to Celestial Dragon City were, of course, the lowest-level monsters. These monsters were easier to deal with. Even with the boss morale boost, they were just a bunch of vegetables in front of the high-level players who were above level 60. The players defending the city were able to hold them off easily. However, as the monsters' levels got higher and higher, the players defending the city gradually felt the pressure. After all, it was difficult for two fists to fight against four hands, and a strong man could not fight against so many people. The number of players on the city walls was limited, and it was not foolproof. Now that Wang Yu had lured Murphy away, the players defending the city not only lost the powerful buff of the monsters attacking the city, but also gave the other players a chance to fight outside the city. Seeing that Wang Yu had led Murphy away, Wuji immediately ordered Dugu Jiuqiang's subordinates. Open the city gates. Let everyone out of the city to fight. Yeah. As the saying went, if you don't have money, don't join the crowd. In the eyes of most people, Wuji was just a stranger. The players at the end of the world would naturally not listen to Wuji's orders. Seeing this seemingly annoying cleric giving orders to everyone with an arrogant look, everyone looked at Dugu Jiuqiang with dissatisfaction. Dugu Jiuqiang was also a guild leader. Of course, he knew what his subordinates' expressions meant. As an old rival of Chuanjin, Dugu Jiuqiang knew Wuji's abilities. So, he nodded and pointed at Wuji. Everyone, don't hesitate. Everyone has to listen to him later. With Dugu Jiuqiang's words, everyone nodded reluctantly and opened the city gates. The players in the city rushed out of Celestial Dragon City under Dugu Jiuqiang's orders. Hey, although Wuji didn't like the guild mode of the apocalypse, the feeling of commanding thousands of troops was indeed very satisfying. Seeing the Heavenly Dragon City players leaving the city, Wuji chuckled and asked Dugu Jiuqiang, "They won't disobey my orders, right?" "Of course not," Dugu Jiuqiang said confidently. "I've already given the order. You're the commander now." "Really?" At this moment, Chun Xiang came over and asked, "Wuji, have them turn around," and attacked Songxin. F***CK. Chun Quan, don't mess around. Hearing Chun Xiang's words, Dugu Jiuqiang's face turned pale. "Ha!" Spring Xiang smirked and said, "Don't be afraid. I was just joking. Go to hell." Dugu Jiuqiang wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead and hurriedly issued an order in the guild channel. "If the cleric on the wall is giving out orders blindly, you must ask for my opinion first." Monster sieges had both advantages and disadvantages to the players, but not all of them were bad. Although monster sieges could destroy the players' homes, the monsters were usually very scattered. They would only gather together when they were sieging the city. Not only that, but during the sieges, the players would also gain a lot of experience and honor points from killing monsters. Even a monster drop rate would increase. Therefore, monster sieges could also be said to be a special activity for the players to level up, hunt for treasures, and farm honor points. Those who could guard the city walls were, of course, the most elite players of the apocalypse. Seeing that there were monsters everywhere outside the city, but they didn't have a chance to attack, the players in the city had long since become impatient. Now that Morphit had left, the city gates were wide open, and the players in the city rushed out like a flood. It didn't take long for everyone to rush out of the city. At this time, after the first few waves of attacks, countless monsters had died outside the city, and the ground was littered with monsters' dropped materials and equipment. Although they were all low-level equipment and materials, no matter how small a fly was, it was still meat. These trash equipment could be decomposed into many rare materials. Even if they were directly sold to the shops, it would still be a source of income. As soon as everyone exited the city, they saw the ground littered with equipment and materials. Immediately, like a swarm of bees, they rushed over and started stealing monsters and equipment. Immediately, the outskirts of the city became a chaotic mess. The scene of hundreds of thousands of players running around outside the city was absolutely shocking. With so many people scrambling to be the first, they were like a meat grinder devouring the black mass of monsters that were sieging the city. Of course, In this chaos, countless players were trampled to death and injured. There were even some with evil intentions who took the opportunity to kill people and steal their equipment. After all, not all the people in Skydragon City were players of the apocalypse. The apocalypse was not a kind world, so it was natural that there were players with evil intentions who took advantage of the situation. Crap! Seeing this scene, Dugu Jiuqiang was completely dumbfounded. He had assumed that these players would unite against the enemy after leaving the city. Who would have thought that it would be so chaotic? Discipline was the most important factor in a large-scale battlefield. Now, it seemed that Skydragon City's players had the upper hand in this chaotic situation. However, the monsters outside the city were only small monsters. Players had the ability to instantly kill them, so no matter how they fought, they would not be at a disadvantage. The levels of the monsters would increase over time. When the monsters' levels became too high and players could not instantly kill them, the monsters would not be at a disadvantage. Compared to high-level monsters, players were naturally easier to kill. Moreover, players had a much higher drop rate than monsters. When the time came, when the players outside the city aimed their weapons at the players, Skydragon City would most likely collapse. Everyone spread out in a single line. Tanks at the front, damage dealers at the back. Surround Skydragon City. While Dugu Jiuqiang was helpless against the chaos below, Wuji turned on the main city shout and sent the order to everyone. After receiving Wuji's order, the players in the apocalypse were still fine. Since Dugu Jiuqiang had given the order, everyone naturally obeyed Wuji's order. However, when playing a game, most people's main goal was to have fun. Who would listen to someone else's orders? Moreover, the current unorganized and undisciplined situation seemed to be more enjoyable for the players outside the apocalypse. These players could not normally kill monsters, but now they could kill monsters and slash people. Who would want to miss such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? At this time, of course, they ignored Wuji's order and pretended not to hear it. For a time, other than the players who received the order and retreated to the city wall, the other players continued to kill monsters, slash people, and pick up equipment. They were having a great time. Damn it, these bastards actually dropped the ball at such a crucial moment. Is it time to use them? Seeing that the other players were indifferent to Wuji's order, Dugu Jiuqiang cursed angrily. However, he only cursed and did not dare to take any action like he did in the past. After all, Dugu Jiuqiang was Skydragon City's city lord. Now that the monsters were attacking the city, Dugu Jiuqiang still hoped that others would work for him. Of course, he did not dare to use violence to threaten them. Chapter 1847. However, Wuji didn't care about this. Seeing that the Apocalypse World players were already in formation, Wuji calmly waved his hand and ordered, "Attack!" Receiving Wuji's order, the Apocalypse World players were stunned. No one dared to make a move. What a joke! This wasn't a joke. If they attacked the players, wouldn't the players be helping the monsters to attack the city? Wouldn't this be digging their own graves? Wuji, old dog, you're messing with me. Dugu Jiuqiang was even angrier. I gave you the guild because I trusted you. How can you mess around like this? What do you know? Wuji rolled his eyes at Dugu Jiuqiang. Do you know why you're so useless? If you don't use thunderous methods, how can you show your kindness? In this situation, people who don't follow the rules are worse than the enemy. If we don't get rid of them first, more people will die. But although Wuji's words were a bit nonsensical, it wasn't without reason. Dugu Jiuqiang was stunned. If we kill them, how can we defend the city? You're talking as if they will help you if you don't kill them. Wuji said with disdain. Do you have to wait for them to turn around and attack you? Do you have a brain? What's more, your guild can't even defend a city with tens of thousands of people. With Wuji's reprimand, Dugu Jiuqiang immediately swallowed back the words that were at the tip of his tongue. After thinking for a while, Dugu Jiuqiang simply repeated Wuji's order. Listen to him, attack. This kind of thing was actually finding someone to take responsibility for. Dugu Jiuqiang stated that everyone had to listen to Wuji's orders, but he also said that if Wuji messed around, he would have to ask him. Obeying wasn't blindly following, attacking wasn't courting death. Of course, None of them dared to obey Wuji's command. Otherwise, if something happened to them, they would have to apologize to the entire guild. Now that their guild leader had spoken, Apocalypse's members no longer hesitated. Immediately, they pulled into formation and fired their magic arrows at the front lines. Boom, 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 boom. Following a series of explosions, white lights of death covered the area. The Heavenly Dragon City players, who had been fighting over monsters and equipment, were blinded by this wave of attacks. Expressions of horror appeared on their faces. At the same time, Wuji's order reached everyone's ears. Get into a straight line formation and surround the Heavenly Dragon City. At this time, the importance of a team could be seen. If the disobedient Celestial Dragon City players were from another guild, they would have fought back against the Apocalypse. However, to put it nicely, these players were opportunists. To put it bluntly, they were a group of mobs. Not to mention guilds, most of these players were small groups, and there were even some solo players. Usually, they were bullied by the Apocalypse. At this moment, when they saw the Apocalypse killing people, their first thought wasn't revenge, but joy that they weren't the ones who died. What followed was fear of the Apocalypse. Fear naturally came from the deterrence of force. When they heard Wuji's order again, these players who originally treated Wuji's words as farts became as obedient as rabbits. They lowered their heads and reluctantly joined the Apocalypse's formation. Those who were killed by the Apocalypse were naturally furious. However, when they came outside the city to incite everyone to fight against the Apocalypse, who knew that all the players outside the city had already joined the Apocalypse's formation. What a joke! What does it have to do with us if you die? If they joined the world Apocalypse, they would be able to kill monsters and obtain equipment. If they followed this motley crew and went against the world Apocalypse, there would only be death. These fellows with ulterior motives naturally knew better than anyone else what they should choose. Seeing this scene, the players who were ready to take revenge suddenly lost their courage. They had no choice but to compromise and join the Apocalypse's formation. This, seeing Wuji's simple and violent wave of attacks to enforce the discipline of the players outside the city, Dugu Juqiang looked at Wuji in shock and said, "What the F*** CK? Nonsense." Wuji said, "Is there a more effective method than this? Aren't you afraid that they will betray us?" Dugu Juqiang asked curiously, "What does it have to do with me? The Apocalypse and the life and death of Celestial Dragon City have nothing to do with me." Wuji replied indifferently, "F***CK." Cold sweat flowed down the back of Dugu Juqiang's head. Damn, Dugu Juqiang finally understood why he couldn't beat Wuji. This son of AB*TCH's character was too F***King bad. After pulling up the formation, the chaotic situation outside Celestial Dragon City became orderly. More than 100,000 players neatly surrounded the city, separating Celestial Dragon City from the attacking monsters. The essence of rebirth lay in teamwork. With their cooperation, everything became much easier. The tanks focused on defense, the DPS focused on dealing damage, and the healers focused on healing the front line. Whether it was offense or defense, everything became orderly. The attacking monsters were also easily blocked by the Celestial Dragon City players outside the city with the help of the defensive equipment on the city walls. The chaotic situation was now orderly, and Dugu Juqiang could see the light of victory. Although Dugu Juqiang had some complaints about Wuji's bad character, when he saw the players easily blocking the attacking monsters outside the city, Dugu Juqiang couldn't help but respect Wuji. Wuji was able to lead a few people to rampage in the game world, and he was able to go against a major guild like the Apocalypse for so many years. This guy had some skills. The crisis of Celestial Dragon City had been alleviated under Wuji's command. If everything went smoothly, it wouldn't be difficult to defend until the siege ended. On the other side, Wang Yu had lured the evil dragon Moffat all the way to the Dragonblood Plateau. Wang Yu only stopped when he could no longer see the attacking monsters. Wang Yu stopped, and Moffat also landed on the ground. He pointed angrily at Wang Yu and said, "Lowly worm, why aren't you running anymore? The more you run, the more excited I get." Wang Yu was stunned. "Is that so? Wang Yu raised his eyebrows and said, "Are you a male or female dragon? Why did that stick make you so excited?" "You?" Moffat's face turned sinister when he heard Wang Yu's mockery. It was a humiliation for the evil dragon Moffat to be poked in that place. Now that Wang Yu used it to humiliate him, one could imagine how Moffat felt. "I'm going to kill you," Moffat roared. He turned around and swung his thick tail at Wang Yu. Chapter 1848. Rumble. As Moffat's tail swept across the area, the surrounding flora and fauna were all swept to the ground. What a coincidence! Wang Yu smiled and jumped back, dodging Moffat's attack. He then said, "I'm going to kill you too." As he spoke, Wang Yu stomped on the ground and leaped onto Moffat's back. He then stepped on Moffat's back and ran toward its head. The terror of creatures like giant dragons lay in their destructive power. A single breath was enough to destroy an entire city. A single stomp from a giant dragon was comparable to any powerful attack. What was even more terrifying was that the giant dragon was covered in sturdy scales that were immune to most physical and magical attacks. Even strategic siege weapons like ballistae and magic crystal cannons could only tickle the giant dragon's body. With such high attack and defense, the giant dragon was practically a mobile turret. Ordinary players would not be able to break through the giant dragon's defense, even if the giant dragon remained motionless and allowed the players to attack it. Therefore, nobody dared to provoke a real dragon-type monster without some real ability. As a sealed boss, the evil dragon Moffat was naturally stronger than ordinary dragon-type monsters. Its body was also larger. However, it was precisely because of this that the evil dragon Moffat was much easier to deal with than other monsters in Wang Yu's eyes. A Grandmaster of Combat was an agility-based combat class that focused on attacking the opponent's weaknesses. Although the evil dragon Moffat was huge, its weaknesses were undoubtedly obvious. Of course, Moffat's body was as huge as a city wall. No matter how obvious its weaknesses were, ordinary Grandmasters of Combat would not be able to catch up to it. However, it was Moffat's bad luck to have encountered a martial arts Grandmaster like Wang Yu. In just a few leaps, Wang Yu had jumped onto Moffat's neck. No matter how strong Moffat was, his back was still a blind spot that he could not touch. Feeling that Wang Yu had jumped onto his neck, Moffat was shocked. He flapped his wings desperately on the ground and tried to grab the back of his neck with his claws, trying to knock Wang Yu down. Faced with Moffat's struggle, Wang Yu clamped his feet on the dragon scales on Moffat's back and used the 1,000-kilogram drop to stabilize himself. No matter how Moffat shook his body, Wang Yu did not move at all. Steadying himself, Wang Yu aimed at the circle of palm-sized scales on the back of Murphy's neck and stabbed down with the fingers of his right hand like a knife. The reverse scale was the softest and most vital part of the dragon's. Wang Yu's stab was right in the middle of the reverse scale. Poochie, a muffled sound rang out. Wang Yu's entire palm was inserted into the gap between Moffat's reverse scales. Puffed. A cloud of golden dragon blood sprayed out and splattered all over Wang Yu. Roar. Moffat let out a loud roar in pain. However, Wang Yu did not have the slightest intention of stopping. With a sudden turn of his palm, he grabbed the scale and lifted it up. Rip! With an ear-piercing sound, a palm-sized dragon scale was directly ripped off by Wang Yu. Roar! Under the intense pain, Moffat raised his neck reflexively and let out a heart-wrenching scream. For dragons, the most terrifying thing was to have one scale ripped off. Moreover, at this time, Wang Yu had ripped off his reverse scale. This was definitely a bone-piercing pain. Moffat's shrill scream even spread to Sky Dragon City in the distance. On the city wall, Dugu Jiuqiang and the people of Qianjin were all terrified when they heard the sound. They looked at each other in unison. This sound should be the evil dragon Moffat, right? Dugu Jiuqiang asked in horror. Yes. Wuji nodded and said in surprise. But it sounds like he's in great pain. Hiss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Even without Wuji saying it, everyone could hear how shrill Moffat's scream was. They just did not dare to confirm that it was Moffat who was screaming. F***CK. What did Iron Bull, that beast, do to Moffat to be able to make a boss dragon wail like this? At the same time, Uranus and the others who had caught up also heard Moffat scream. Hearing this shrill scream, Uranus and the others were extremely surprised. This evil dragon Moffat was screaming so miserably. Was there another boss around? Seems like it worked. Seeing Moffat's reaction, Wang Yu was also a little surprised. Wang Yu had killed many dragons and knew that the weakness of dragon-type monsters was their reverse scale. However, it was the first time Wang Yu had encountered a guy as sensitive as Moffat. Since this trick was so effective, Wang Yu would not show mercy. After throwing the torn dragon scale into his backpack, Wang Yu stuck his palm in again. Dragons were all treasures, and the evil dragon's reverse scale was a precious material for forging armor. Naturally, Wang Yu would not throw it away. Rip! Roar! Another scale was torn off. Moffat screamed in pain as he smashed his head against his back. At the same time, he spread his wings and flew up, tumbling in the air. Such violent shaking made it difficult for Wang Yu to stand still. Therefore, Wang Yu switched the weapon in his hand to the dragon spear and stabbed it into the part where Moffat's scale was torn off. Puffed. Half of the nearly 3-meter-long dragon spear was inserted in. After fixing it in place, Wang Yu grabbed the spear handle with his left hand and continued to peel off the scale with his right. After Wang Yu peeled off another 3 or 4 dragon scales, Moffat finally could not stand the pain anymore. He simply leaned back and smashed his back against the ground. The evil dragon Moffat's huge body fell from the sky, creating a huge commotion. Boom! With a loud noise, Moffat smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. The entire Dragon Blood Plateau shook with it. However, although this movement was loud, it was of no use at all. Wang Yu was very agile. Just at the moment when Moffat hit the ground, Wang Yu flashed to Moffat's side, allowing Moffat to have a solid and intimate contact with the ground. Just then, Uranus and the rest also followed the commotion and chased after them. When they saw Wang Yu floating above Moffat, everyone was stunned. Uranus' heart skipped a beat when he saw this. He casually cast a detection spell. However, the system prompted, "This skill cannot be used on players." It's a player? Seeing the system prompt, the expressions on Uranus and the others' faces immediately changed from astonishment to shock. At first, Uranus thought that the guy in front of him was a humanoid boss. Who would have thought that the guy who beat up the evil dragon Moffat and made him scream in pain was actually a player? Uranus and the others suddenly couldn't believe their eyes. A mere player beat up the evil dragon Moffat like this. How was that possible? Please remember the original domain name of this book, mobile version. Chapter 1849. It was clear that Uranus and the others were very confident in their own strength since they dared to hunt down a boss like the evil dragon Moffat. Even so, Uranus had never thought of challenging Moffat alone. However, not only did someone challenge Moffat alone, but he even beat Moffat up. One could only imagine how Uranus and the others felt at that moment. Could it be that Moffat is actually very weak? Logic mumbled to himself after recovering from the shock. Don't care if he's weak or not. Uranus said with a cold expression. This despicable beast actually broke his promise. I must kill him with my own hands. Everyone, let's attack together. We can't let him die in the hands of others. Okay. The others immediately rushed forward upon receiving Uranus's order. Oh, someone from the apocalypse? Wang Yu had seen Uranus and the others in midair. He thought that they were helpers from the apocalypse. After all, ordinary players did not have the ability to fight a boss like Moffat. The only guild in the entire Sky Dragon City that had such an expert was the Apocalypse. Therefore, when Wang Yu saw Uranus and the others coming to steal the kill, he did not stop them and allowed them to rush to Moffat's side. Moffat was also a boss with high AI. After fighting with Wang Yu for a few rounds, Moffat realized how difficult it was to deal with this guy in front of him. Wang Yu was already so difficult to deal with. Now that Uranus and the others were coming at him aggressively, Moffat naturally did not dare to be careless. Therefore, Moffat got up and spread his wings to take off. Ares. However, at that moment, Uranus gave the order, and a warrior behind him rushed to Moffat's feet. The warrior named Ares was wearing a shiny black armor and held a very strange weapon in his hand. The weapon looked like a scythe, but there was a black chain hanging on the scythe's handle. Seeing that Moffat got up and flew, Ares swung the black chain on the handle of the scythe, circling the scythe a few times. Then he raised his hand and the scythe flew towards Moffat's big feet. The scythe was extremely fast and flew to Moffat's feet in an instant. "Ha!" With a crisp sound, the scythe wrapped around Moffat's foot. At the same time, Ares tightened his grip on the chain, and a bolt of black lightning attached to Moffat's foot along the chain. Sizzle. The next moment, Moffat's entire body lit up with dazzling electric arcs. The black lightning was rather strange. The scales on Moffat's body had an extremely high defense, but after being struck by the black lightning, Moffat was immediately paralyzed in midair. "Come down!" Ares let out a roar and pulled down forcefully with his arms. Plop! Murphy, who had already flown into the air, was forcefully dragged down by Ares and fell to the ground. Zeus! Apollo! As soon as Moffat landed, Uranus gave another order. A player dressed as a magician emerged from behind Zeus. A dazzling ball of lightning burst out from the arm of the player named Zeus. As he pulled his hands back, a purple lightning spear appeared in his hands. Zeus held the spear in his right hand, ran a few steps, and swung it diagonally upward. The lightning spear flew straight at Moffat. Roar! Of course, Moffat was not a guy who would not fight back. Seeing the lightning spear flying over, Moffat slapped it down with his claws. Whoosh! The lightning spear was shattered by Moffat's slap. However, the lightning spear did not disappear after being shattered. The purple lightning element quickly condensed into a huge electric net in midair, covering Moffat from top to bottom. Almost at the same time, a guy dressed as an archer in red leather armor also appeared at Moffat's feet. The archer did not take out a bow. Instead, he dug his hands into his thighs, and 5 daggers appeared in each of his palms. Hit! The archer raised his hand, and 10 daggers flew into the sky with flames. They all pierced into Moffat's eyes. Roar! Moffat was in pain. He suddenly got up and broke free from Ares and Zeus' control. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of dragon element at Uranus and the others. When everyone saw this, they calmly stood behind Uranus. Uranus calmly took a step forward, raised a tower shield, and smashed it on the ground, activating shield wall. Kaboom! A huge shadow of a shield blocked in front of Uranus and the others. Moffat's dragon element was repelled after hitting the shield. Seeing the battle on the ground, Wang Yu had a surprised expression on his face. Wang Yu had seen and even fought with the professional experts of the guilds during the apocalypse. As a defeated opponent of Wang Yu knew the strength of the top experts of the apocalypse like the back of his hand. In the eyes of ordinary people, the strength of professional experts was almost the same. In any case, they were all very strong, so strong that ordinary people could not tell the difference. Wang Yu, on the other hand, was different. Wang Yu was also an expert, so he naturally had a very unique insight. It was true that the combat teams of the apocalypse were strong. Whether it was the individual strength or the teamwork between the players in front of him, they were obviously much stronger than the combat teams of the apocalypse. Even when compared to the Kingdom of 9 States, they were not the slightest bit inferior. Take the previous wave of crowd control as an example. It should be known that beast-type monsters had a strong immunity to crowd control skills. As the best among beast-type monsters, dragons were even more difficult to control. Players' crowd control skills had little effect on dragons. However, from the flying scythe footbind to the electric net cover to the archer's damage output, the 3 players' skills could be said to be flawless. If they were a step faster, the crowd control effect of the first 2 skills would stack, and if they were a step slower, the 3 skills would not be able to connect. Even though Wang Yu was used to the tacit understanding between Xuanzhen's group, he could not help but feel his eyes light up when he saw the coordination between the players on the ground. Since when did such a group of experts appear in the apocalypse? Why did such a group of ruthless people not reveal themselves before? While Wang Yu was still in a daze, Morpheus had already finished unleashing his dragon breath. Taking advantage of Morpheus's stupor, Wang Yu descended from the sky and stomped on the back of Morpheus's neck. This sudden stomp caused Morpheus's head to fall to the ground. Seeing this, Uranus rushed up and smashed Morpheus's head with his shield bash. Buzz! Moffat was momentarily stunned, and the people behind Uranus took advantage of the opportunity to perform a more precise combination of control than before. With the cooperation of the entire team, Morpheus was able to control Morpheus for as long as 3 seconds. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version. Chapter 1850. Currently, the most effective way for Wang Yu to deal with Moffat was to peel off his scales or attack the parts of Moffat that were not covered by scales. However, compared to the parts covered by scales, there were very few parts of Moffat's body that were not covered. Attacking those soft parts not only required superb skills, but also high accuracy. After all, Moffat was a dragon-type boss with unparalleled strength. He was not a piece of wood that would just stand there and wait for death. In the face of Wang Yu's attack, he naturally refused to stand still and wait for another attack. Especially after Wang Yu peeled off a few of his scales, Moffat also realized how terrifying Wang Yu was. Therefore, his entire body kept rolling back and forth in the sky and on the ground, twisting his body frantically to avoid Wang Yu's attacks. Even Wang Yu found it extremely difficult to deal with Moffat, who was jumping up and down. After all, Moffat was too strong. If he attacked such a huge creature while it was jumping around, he might lose his life if he was even grazed by it. Although with Wang Yu's strength, it would not be as tragic as being sat on by Moffat and dying. It would be a little difficult to hit the vital parts of Moffat's body that were not covered by scales. At this time, Moffat was firmly controlled by the exquisite cooperation of a team of players below. Although each wave of control only lasted for 3 seconds, it gave Wang Yu an opportunity to take advantage of. Just as Moffat was controlled in place, Wang Yu descended from midair, thrust his palm downwards, and peeled off the scales in one go. In the blink of an eye, several scales on the back of Moffat's neck were peeled off one by Wang Yu. While Wang Yu was attacking from above, Uranus and the others were not idle either. The archer Apollo kept throwing flying daggers at Uranus' eyes, nostrils, and mouth, causing clouds of golden blood to form. The cooperation between experts was always so tacit. Under the continuous cooperation of Wang Yu, Uranus, and the others, Moffat's health bar dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye. After some time, the circle of scales on Moffat's neck was completely peeled off by Wang Yu, and Moffat's health dropped to less than 10%. Pay attention to the boss's health. Clear the surrounding people first. Just when Moffat was about to be beheaded, Uranus and the others turned to look at Wang Yu. Killing all non-friendly targets other than the boss was the first of the 3 rules of killing a boss. Although Wang Yu was alone, Wang Yu's damage output was higher than Uranos' party. That was why Uranos and the others did not deliberately chase Wang Yu away from start. At this moment, Moffat's blood was already in the red, but he had not gone berserk yet. It was obvious that he was struggling at death's door. There was no point in keeping Wang Yu, who was a powerful damage dealer. It was reasonable to kill the ox after it had left the millstone. As Uranus changed the topic, Zeus condensed a thunder spear and aimed it at Wang Yu with his 5 fingers. With a purple glow, the lightning spear stabbed towards Wang Yu, who was on Murphy's back. At the same time, Apollo changed the direction of his attack. He raised his hand and threw 10 daggers at Wang Yu. Although Wang Yu did not have the intention to harm anyone, Wang Yu was still on guard against this group of unknown people. Wang Yu had expected Uranus and the others to attack him. Facing the incoming lightning spear, Wang Yu calmly extended his right hand and threw out an energy wave towards the lightning spear. Upon seeing this, Zeus frowned slightly and clenched his fingers. Pah! The lightning spear dissipated, and the lightning element that filled the sky turned into a huge net that covered Wang Yu from top to bottom. Wang Yu smiled and appeared right above the thunder net in a flash. ZZZT. The thunder net missed and covered Murphy's head. Apollo's daggers also lost their target and stabbed into Murphy's neck that had lost the protection of his reverse scale. Fall. In midair, Wang Yu used Eagle Step and landed instantly. The boxing glove in his hand turned into a 2-meter-long giant sword, stabbing down from above Murphy. With a muffled sound, the sword in Wang Yu's hand accurately pierced into the back of Murphy's neck, all the way to the hilt. Before Uranus and the others could launch a second wave of attacks, Wang Yu had already landed on the left side of Murphy's neck. Then he grabbed the hilt of the sword tightly with both hands and used Thunder Step to kick upwards. Wang Yu and his sword fell in the opposite direction. The huge blade in Murphy's neck was pulled downwards by Wang Yu's strength. Murphy, who did not have much HP to begin with, suffered such a heavy blow. His huge head was immediately cut off by Wang Yu's sword. Plop! The huge dragon head fell to the ground, creating a deep pit with a diameter of several meters. Murphy's corpse also turned into specks of light. Bang! After his death, Moffat exploded in midair. Glittering equipment and items fell from the sky like rain. Grab it! When Uranus saw this, he immediately raised his shield and rushed to the spot where Murphy was just now. The others also followed him without any prior agreement. Actually, according to the drop settings of Rebirth, Wang Yu is the one who attacked the boss, as well as Moffat's main enemy and killer. Therefore, Moffat belonged to Wang Yu. Therefore, even if Wang Yu did not pick up the items dropped by Murphy, Uranus and the others would not be able to pick them up during the protection period. However, if the system had a policy, the players would have a countermeasure. There were many ways to snatch a boss in the game. One of the most common ways was to step on the items dropped by the boss until the protection period ended. During this period, unless the owner of the item killed everyone, no one could pick it up. However, just as Uranus and the others rushed to the bottom of the dropped items, Wang Yu leaped and stepped on Uranus' shield, using it as leverage, and his figure suddenly rose higher. Uranus felt his vision darken. Immediately after, a figure appeared above him. The figure grabbed left and right with both hands, flying up and down, grabbing all the items that Murphite had dropped. Uranus and the others were not the kind of people who would do anything for others. Seeing that Wang Yu had snatched all the items dropped by the boss, Ares swung the scythe in his hand at Wang Yu's right leg without saying a word. Obviously, this group of people had failed to snatch the boss and intended to force the loot to drop. Just as the scythe hooked onto Wang Yu's ankle, Wang Yu smiled slightly in midair, retracted his right foot, and raised his left foot gently. Smack! Ares' scythe was kicked away by Wang Yu. Seeing that his attack was interrupted by Wang Yu's kick, Ares was stunned on the spot. On the other side of Wang Yu, Zeus put his hands together, and a lightning cage suddenly condensed around Wang Yu. Apollo stroked the dagger with his index and middle fingers, and the dagger was covered in a layer of flames. He then tossed the dagger into the air, and with a swing of his arms, the dagger transformed into dozens of other daggers that flew towards Wang Yu with blazing flames. Chapter 1851. Just as the dozens of daggers were about to turn Wang Yu into a hornet's nest, Wang Yu suddenly shouted, and a dazzling crimson-black flame burst forth from his body. Burning Flame Steps. Activate. Burning Flame Steps not only provided powerful attribute bonuses, but it also had the ability to dispel magic. Whoosh! As hellfire rose from Wang Yu's body, Wang Yu shattered Zeus' lightning cage under the powerful impact of hellfire. Wang Yu's Thunder Stomp also came off cooldown after escaping from the cage. At the same time, lightning flashed under Wang Yu's feet, and he landed heavily on the ground. Unexpectedly, the daggers flying toward Wang Yu changed direction in midair and chased after him. Seeing that the daggers had caught up to him, Wang Yu did not panic. He extended his right hand and drew a long sword. With a slight shake of his wrist, 6 plum blossoms appeared. Clang, 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 clang. Omit the number of clangs here. 6 plum blossoms. Each plum blossom had 6 petals, and the 6 plum blossoms were 6 by 6, 36 swords. In that instant, Wang Yu relied on the arc of his wrist to thrust out 36 swords in an instant. The flaming daggers that were flying towards her were all accurately flicked to the ground by Wang Yu. Seeing this scene, Uranus and the others' eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Interrupting Ares' scythe lockbind was one thing. Uranus and the others were confident that they could do the same. As a ruthless person who dared to challenge the evil dragon Moffat alone, it was reasonable for Wang Yu to have such skills. Uranus and the others could understand that sure foam could break free from Zeus' lightning cage by relying on the suppression of skills. However, the last wave of skills that knocked down Apollo's flaming daggers was beyond their imagination. Before this, Wang Yu had already dodged 2 control skills with his extreme maneuvers. Just look at Wang Yu's situation. Not to mention several dozen daggers. Even a random arrow would be difficult for an ordinary player to block. After all, there was a limit to a person's ability to focus their mind. To be able to display 2 extreme moves in a row was already a top-tier expert. However, not only was Wang Yu not stabbed by the daggers, but he also knocked all the daggers away with a backhand. Such a terrifying skill was simply shocking. The speed of his reaction and the accuracy of his attack had reached an unimaginable level, causing Uranus and the others to turn pale. What kind of monster is this? In his shock, even a powerful man like Uranus couldn't help but doubt if Wang Yu was a real player. On the other side, after Wang Yu knocked down the flaming daggers, he didn't stop at all. He stomped on the ground and did 2 somersaults and a backward jump to increase the distance between him and his opponents. He then jumped out of the attack range of Uranus and the others. After jumping out of the attack range of Uranus and the others, Wang Yu frowned and stared at the people in front of him with a serious expression. His hands unconsciously rolled up his sleeves. It was common knowledge that once Wang Yu rolled up his sleeves, it meant that he was in a serious state. Wang Yu's fighting style had always been indomitable. No matter how many opponents there were, he would always press forward and rarely retreat. In just one exchange of blows, Uranus and the others had actually forced Wang Yu to take the initiative to retreat and increase the distance between them. It was clear that Wang Yu had now realized how difficult it was to deal with this group of people opposite him. To be honest, ever since Wang Yu entered Rebirth, he had never encountered any decent opponents. Even if he encountered a team of professional players, he could still put up a fight. There were only 3 people in front of him, yet they were able to force Wang Yu to such a state. It was clear that their strength was something that Wang Yu had never encountered in the game. Only Kyushu Kingdom's team could pressure Wang Yu with the way ordinary people fought in the game. However, these people in front of him were obviously stronger than Kyushu Kingdom's team. Both sides looked at each other and were stunned for half a minute. No one made a move. Of course, Uranus didn't dare to do so. This was because these people were very confident in their strength. If they couldn't defeat a single person in a team, it would undoubtedly be a devastating blow to their morale. Even if Uranus wasn't confident, he didn't dare to let his worries become reality. On the other hand, Wang Yu didn't want to do that. Don't blame Uranus and the others for having bad intentions. The reason why Wang Yu was able to kill Moffat so easily was because of these people's help. Since they had already taken the item, it would be a little unkind to kill them. Moreover, these people in front of him were all experts. Fighting them would definitely waste a lot of time. Now that Sky Dragon City was still being attacked by monsters, Wang Yu naturally didn't have the time to deal with these people. However, if Uranus really didn't know what was good for him and insisted on fighting, Wang Yu didn't mind teaching them a lesson. Who are you? After a long time, when Uranus saw that Wang Yu didn't attack again, he also realized that Wang Yu didn't want to make an enemy out of him. Therefore, he put away the shield in his hand and asked in broken Mandarin, "I should be the one asking that question." Wang Yu calmly said, "You don't look like local players. We're defending the city, and you suddenly came out and asked me who I am." "Sorry." Uranus was stunned for a moment, then quickly pointed to the people around him and introduced themselves. "We're Pantheon. Unlocking the evil dragon Moffat seal is our mission." Pantheon? Hearing these 3 words, Wang Yu touched his chin and said calmly, "Oh, eh." Uranus and the others were stunned again when they saw Wang Yu's expression. Uranus and the others were quite proud of their team's reputation. They thought that when Wang Yu heard the three words Pantheon, he would be amazed and say that he's heard of you for a long time. Unexpectedly, Wang Yu's reaction was so calm. It was as if he heard Zhang San, Li Si, Iron Ox, David, Jack, Dog Leftover, and other common names. He didn't show any emotion at all. This made Wang Yu's mysterious aura even more intense. Obviously, a powerful expert like Wang Yu must have seen a lot, but he was so calm when he heard the name Pantheon. It was obvious that Pantheon was just a passerby in his eyes. "I'm Iron Ox." Ignoring Uranus' surprise, Wang Yu replied calmly, "I'm busy. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." "Ow. Okay," Alanos quickly said. "Go ahead. You won't ambush me again, will you?" After spending so much time with Wuji, Wang Yu was no longer a naive greenhorn. Of course, he wouldn't believe Uranus' words so easily. Seeing that Uranus agreed so readily, Wang Yu narrowed his eyes and solemnly warned, "Let me tell you, I can see you from the back of my head. Even if you attack me from behind, it won't work." Ugh, Uranus and the others heard this, and a large drop of sweat flowed down their foreheads. Chapter 1852. Under Wuji's command, the players of Sky Dragon City easily and methodically blocked the waves of attacks from the monsters. The monster siege was caused by the evil Dragon Moffat. Now that the evil Dragon Moffat was killed, the monsters lost their leader, and their morale naturally dropped. When Wang Yu returned to Sky Dragon City, the monster siege was nearing its end. When Wang Yu carried the evil Dragon Moffat's head and flew up the city wall, the morale of the monsters under Sky Dragon City plummeted, and they fled in all directions. System notification. The monsters under the siege are beginning to disperse. System notification. The monsters under the siege have retreated. The defense of Sky Dragon City has succeeded. The construction rate of Sky Dragon City has increased. Sky Dragon City players have obtained the title Homeland Defender. Homeland Defender. Title all income increased by 100%. Duration, 30 days. The announcement of the defense's success floated in the sky above Sky Dragon City. The evil Dragon Moffat was killed. As the city lord of Sky Dragon City, besides receiving the reward for defending the city, Dugu Jiuqiang also received an additional reward. It was an epic recipe. Dragon Slayer Cannon, paper, quality, epic, the blueprint for the defense weapon, Dragon Slayer Cannon. The Dragon Slayer Cannon, as the name suggested, was a weapon that could kill dragons. After defending the city this time, Dugu Jiuqiang also realized that ordinary magic crystal cannons and ballistae were not worth mentioning in front of advanced dragons. Although Sky Dragon City's city walls were sturdier than most major cities, the monsters that massacred the city twice were dragons. So, no matter how sturdy the city walls were, it was useless if they could not defeat the dragons. Now that he had a weapon like the Dragon Slayer Cannon, even if it was not like adding wings to a tiger, he at least had a way to fight back against the dragons. As the city lord of the Celestial Dragon City, Wang Yu received additional rewards as well as the tax reward. However, at the end of the day, Wang Yu was only there to help. Even if the evil Dragon Moffat was killed by Wang Yu, compared to the Dragon Slayer Cannon, Wang Yu's reward was a little shabby. Wang Yu's reward was only a passive attribute. Iron Fist Diplomacy, passive attribute, increases deterrence to enemies, factions, and countries by 50%. During the city war, the attack and defense of all main city players within the attacking range of the main city are increased by 50%. Skill introduction. Weak countries have no diplomacy. Justice only exists under the fist, and truth only exists within the range of cannons. This skill was equivalent to a super big buff. Although its attributes were not weak, its use was limited to city wars, faction wars, and nation wars. It could not be considered practical, nor could it be considered too costly. After all, especially in the later stages, city wars, nation wars, and faction wars were the main game modes. Although Wang Yu was a pacifist and did not like to take the initiative to attack others, the tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. No one could stop others from attacking the main cities under Wang Yu's name. Such a skill would definitely play a decisive role when the curtains of the future city wars were drawn. Dugu Jiuqiang should have been in a good mood after successfully defending the city and receiving an additional reward. However, he stared at Wang Yu in horror and asked, "Ox God, did you kill Moffat?" Obviously, if Moffat did not die, Dugu Jiuqiang would not receive an additional reward. Yes. Wang Yu nodded indifferently and said, "I killed him." Hiss! Hearing Wang Yu's words, Dugu Jiuqiang could not help but gasp. When Moffat attacked the city just now, Dugu Jiuqiang was standing on the city wall. Dugu Jiuqiang had personally experienced how strong Moffat was. Although Dugu Jiuqiang also knew that Wang Yu was strong, it would obviously take some effort to kill a monster like Moffat, who had unparalleled defense and attack power. However, from the time Wang Yu pulled Moffat away to the time Wang Yu returned to Sky Dragon City, Moffat was killed by Wang Yu in just a short period of time. If it were not for the fact that he was very familiar with Wang Yu and that Dugu Jiuqiang had also received an additional reward, Dugu Jiuqiang would even think that Wang Yu was bragging. What shocked Nine Lone Spears even more was that from Wang Yu's casual tone, it was as if killing a boss like Moffat was as easy as killing a wild monster on the side of the road. It was not worth mentioning at all. Just how strong and confident did he have to be able to remain so calm? Really, the speaker did not mean it, but the listener did. Hearing that Wang Yu said that he had killed Moffat, Xuanjin did not have the slightest doubt. Instead, they all came up and asked excitedly, "What did it drop? What did it drop?" Let me see." Wang Yu scratched his head and took out all the items that Moffat had dropped just now. Although Moffat was strong, in the setting, Moffat was actually a quest boss, and the drop rate of quest bosses was quite low. Although it looked like it was raining items, in fact, most of them were materials. Evil Dragon's reverse scale, precious material, can be used to forge equipment. Evil Dragon's claw, precious material, can be used to forge equipment. Evil Dragon's meat, precious ingredient, can be used to cook gourmet food. Anyway, there were many treasures on giant dragons. Whether it was dragon scales, dragon claws, dragon meat, or dragon tendons, they were all extremely precious materials. Even things like dragon dicks could be used as ingredients for medicine. This was refreshing to Wang Yu and the others. They did not expect Rebirth to be such a big game. Apart from that, there was a skill book and a pair of boxing gloves left. Raging Dragon's Breath, rare skill, causes powerful dragon flame damage to the target by breathing. Usage requirement, Dragon Descendant. Dragon Descendant was not a profession in Rebirth, but a special racial bloodline. After Wang Yu killed Long Aoyin and released Dales, Dragon Island regained its freedom. As the first neutral main city to declare independence, all the players of Yu Huicheng and the Celestial Dragon City under his command received the Dragon Descendant Bloodline quest. With their identity as Yu Huicheng or Celestial Dragon City, as long as they passed the trial, the players could obtain anything from dragons and obtain the qualifications to obtain the Dragon Descendant Bloodline. For example, Wang Yu had obtained the recognition and following of Dragon Emperor Dales. The dragons in his body were the direct bloodline of the Golden Holy Dragon, one of the 4 ancient races in Rebirth. They were extremely noble. As a dragon descendant, although there was no increase in attributes, they were immune to all the so-called suppression of dragon aura and divine aura. Giant dragons like Evil Dragon Moffat were like worms in front of Wang Yu. This was why Wang Yu could easily remove Moffat's dragon scales. The people of Xuanjin had naturally done the Dragon Descendant quest before. These guys also had the Dragon Descendant bloodline. However, Raging Dragon's Breath was obviously a mage skill. It would not be very useful for others to learn it, so they could only benefit the Trash Mingdu. Chapter 1853. Hee. Then I won't hold back. Mingdu smiled wretchedly, took the skill book, and casually patted it. The skill book turned into a white light and entered Mingdu's body. Come, perform a skill. Seeing that Mingdu had learned a skill, the rest of Quan Jin cheered. Get out of the way! Get out of the way! Mingdu was also a guy who liked to show off. Under everyone's instigation, Mingdu spread his hands and had everyone disperse. Then he cleared his throat, opened his mouth, and spat out 4 fire dragons. The 4 fire dragons flew up, down, left, and right respectively. Boom! With an explosive sound, the 4 fire dragons drew 4 arcs in the air and hit the same point. Whoa! Everyone exclaimed in admiration when they saw the dragon breath that radiant city spewed out. With Mingdu's current magic power and the effect of the skill, just now, the damage of this spell was undeniable. However, in Rebirth, there was a rule that was not set. The higher the damage of a skill, the lower the hit rate. For example, Mingdu's Thunderstorm spell and Wang Yu's Shadow Chain Kick were skills with a relatively long preparation time. When dealing with expert players, if one's prediction and timing were not grasped well, it was extremely easy for the target to dodge. However, Dragon Breath of Rage was a spell that could be cast from up, down, left, and right. Its range was so wide that it directly sealed off all the space for the target player to dodge. If one did not have movement skills such as teleportation, this spell could be said to have a 100% hit rate. Mingdu's magic was very extreme. Not only did he have a full body of fire attribute equipment, but he also had the Vermilion Bird Staff, which was the embodiment of the fire element. Together with his powerful breath skill, his strength was directly raised by a lot. Damn it, just when everyone was surprised by Mingdu's skill, Mingdu cursed angrily. This sh*T skill is too overpowered. It actually consumed half of my mana. Hearing this, everyone was speechless again. Mingdu was a mage who focused all his points on intelligence. With his equipment that increased intelligence, his mana was definitely an astronomical figure. A single skill consumed half of Mingdu's mana. It could be seen how terrifying the skill's consumption was. Fortunately, Mingdu had learned this spell. If someone else had learned it, they wouldn't have been able to cast it with their limited mana. What kind of skill was that? Dragon Breath. It was the dragon's signature move. In the game's background, dragons had almost unlimited mana points. Naturally, using a skill like Dragon Breath wouldn't make much of a difference. However, when used on human players, the mana cost of Dragon Breath was very obvious. Besides, every skill had its pros and cons. This skill had high attack and hit rate. If it didn't consume too much energy, wouldn't Mingdu be invincible after learning this skill? He really didn't put the system in his eyes. Uncle Nyo, are these gloves for me? After admiring the Dragon Breath skill, to place one's pride's eyes fell on the gloves in Wang Yu's hands. His eyes were filled with excitement. To place one's pride knew that the gloves in Wang Yu's hands were a legendary weapon tailor-made for Wang Yu. It could transform into 18 different weapons and become an invincible legendary weapon. With such a legendary weapon in hand, Wang Yu wouldn't be interested in any Grandmaster of Combat's weapons. At this moment, the gloves in Wang Yu's hand were most likely going to be his. Okay, Wang Yu glanced at the glove's attributes and tossed it to place one's pride. To place one's pride's eyes lit up after receiving the gloves. He hurriedly removed the Thorn of Despair from his hands and put on the new gloves. This gauntlet covered Pride's entire arm and fist. The gauntlet was jet black and covered in black dragon scales. The dragon scales were engraved with all sorts of magic inscriptions and shone with a strange luster. The fists were like 2 roaring dragon heads. The back of the gloves was lined with sharp dragon teeth. It looked very mighty and domineering. After equipping the new weapon, to place one's pride displayed the glove's attributes to everyone. Evil Dragon's Roar Gauntlet, Epic Attack, 600-600 mana, 200-200 defense, 600-600-20 agility, plus 65 strength, plus 65 vitality. Evil Dragon's Strength, Attack Stance, Passive Skill. The gauntlet has been enchanted with draconic magic. The user will gain the strength of dragons, and all skills will be increased by 50%. Evil Dragon's Avatar, Defense Stance, Passive Skill. The gauntlet has been enchanted with draconic magic. The user will gain the strength of dragons, and all skills will be increased by 50%. Evil Dragon's Fury, magic stance, passive skill. The gauntlet has been enchanted with draconic magic. The user will gain the strength of dragons, and all attacks will be increased by 50%. Evil Dragon's Shield, active skill. Activates shield mode and blocks all damage within the area of the shield. Lasts for 10 seconds and consumes 10% MP cooldown, 15 seconds. Evil Dragon's Psychic Cannon, active skill. Consumes 30% MP. Can fire 5 consecutive cannon attacks at all targets within a 800-meter radius. Cooldown, 30 seconds. Background introduction. The Evil Dragon Moffat was originally a war weapon created by the dragons. During the Descent of Darkness, the war machine Moffat developed intelligence after years of fighting against the Nephilim race. Under the corrosion of the darkness, Moffat became violent and could not differentiate between friend and foe. In the end, Moffat was sealed on Dragon Island by Dragon Emperor Dales. The Evil Dragon's Roar was Moffat's first weapon form. Class requirement: Shield Warrior, Grandmaster of Combat level requirement, 65 epic skill. Charge, Evil Dragon Burst. Charges energy to deliver a fatal punch to the target. The longer the charging time, the higher the damage. The attack ignores all defense. Consumes 50% MP cooldown, 1800 seconds. Gauntlet. So this gauntlet was actually Gauntlet. Gauntlets were also called gauntlets. They were a very special type of weapon. Not only did they have high attack power, but they also had strong defense. There was a shield warrior in the Templar team who used this type of gauntlet. Although its defense was not as good as a shield warrior with a tower shield, its mobility and attack power were far superior to a normal shield warrior. In PvP, it was a very powerful weapon. Monks were one of the main branches of the Grandmaster of Combat. They were a damage output class. However, due to the limitations of this class, the current monk players mainly focused on control and evasion. They mainly focused on tanking. In comparison, Grandmasters of Combat did not have strong bodies. Therefore, the main advantage of a monk as a tank was their control ability. Skill priority was the most important factor in control. A 50% increase in skill priority was undoubtedly the biggest boost to the monk class. Its significance was no less than an assassin's 50% increase in stealth. As for skill resistance, it referred to the resistance to the target's skill priority. For example, a shield warrior had high skill resistance. Normally, a grab skill with low skill priority would have very little effect on a shield warrior. Since Grandmasters of Combat were a relatively weak class, their skill resistance was naturally not as high. To place one's pride, with a 50% increase in skill resistance, his survivability was also greatly increased. Chapter 1854. Other than that, Grandmasters of Combat's attack and defense were relatively weak. However, the Dragon Roar's Dragon Flame damage and the Dragon Shield's defense made up for the Grandmasters of Combat's weaknesses. What was more worth mentioning was that the Psychic Cannon, an attack skill with an 800-meter range, also made up for the Grandmasters of Combat's weaknesses. As for the last skill, the Psychic Cannon had the special effect of breaking through defense. It could be said that this set of boxing gloves made up for all the Grandmasters of Combat's weaknesses. To place one's pride was just young and inexperienced, but his own strength was not weak. If he had not chosen such a weak class like the Grandmaster of Combat, and his weapon level was not up to date, his combat level would at least be no lower than Bao-San. Now that he had this pair of gloves, even if he were to face a first-rate pro player, he could put up a fight. The motley crew's strength was uneven to begin with. Other than Wang Yu's trio, Chuanjin's strength fluctuated too much and was not reliable. Relatively speaking, only Chun Xiang and Baiming Yoyu were relatively reliable. To place one's pride, Now had a new weapon and Mingdu had a new skill. These two were like tigers that had grown wings. Although their strength was not at the level of a top-tier boxing expert, it was still a considerable leap. Fortunately, Chuanjin took the opportunity to take a stroll in the game during the break. They did not expect to have such an unexpected reward. The Celestial Dragon City was finally secured. According to the agreement, after the defense was successful, Dugu Jiuqiang signed a 1,100,000 gold contract with Chuanjin. Wu Ji took the contract and transferred 300,000 gold to Wang Yu. The rest was distributed to the others, except for to place one's pride in Mingdu. Obviously, the extra 200,000 gold that Wang Yu received was the money for the gauntlets and skills. From this point, the Quanzhen sect was still very clear about this. Even blood brothers should settle accounts clearly. No matter how extravagant one's words were, it was better to take out the money directly. For the next 2 days, Chuanjin took advantage of the break in the competition to train in seclusion. On the third day, the American server's knockout tournament officially began. It was different from the Asian server. Due to the existence of the Japanese teams in the Asian server, nearly half of the teams in the Asian server were not very strong. Therefore, their standards were relatively lower. The opponents were not strong, and the teams that qualified did not display any amazing strength. On the other hand, the 6 teams from the American server were all top-tier teams, and all of them were top-tier professional players. After today's matches, it could be said that the audience had a feast for their eyes, sweeping away the displeasure brought about by the motley team's shameless behavior. In the end, 3 teams from the American server successfully advanced. They were RLT, Rebel Team, from North America, Free Team, and SFI, Sci-Fi Team, from Country A. These 3 teams were also veteran-strong teams in the esports circle. No one was surprised that they had successfully advanced. As for the defeat of the other 3 teams, everyone felt regretful. Such a strong team had actually lost in the elimination round. If it had been a few days ago, it would have been a different result. Fate really made a fool out of people. It seemed like esports competitions also depended on luck. After the competition ended, the audience left the venue. After the audience left, the venue became quiet. Wang Yu and the others also got up and left. However, when they reached the entrance of the venue, suddenly, a group of blonde young people walked toward them. From the uniform of these young people, it was not difficult to tell that these teams were the European servers teams that were going to compete tomorrow. This group of people should also be here to familiarize themselves with the venue in advance. P. Tian, looking at the letters on the group of players, Wu Ji was stunned. He immediately touched his chin and muttered to himself, "It's actually Pantheon." Pantheon? Wang Yu's ears were very sensitive. Wu Ji muttered casually, but Wang Yu heard it clearly and could not help but repeat it. "You don't know them," Wu Ji explained with a smile. "These are all famous people in the esports circle. As a gamer, you probably haven't heard of them." "That's right." The others also gossiped at the side. This Pantheon is the world's strongest club, known as the Real Madrid of the esports circle. It has won the championship 5 times and is the club with the most championships in the history of esports. What's Real Madrid? What does it have to do with esports? Wang Yu's curiosity was extremely strong. They just don't lack money, Mingdu said with a face full of envy and jealousy. This club doesn't care if the esports players suit their team's style or not. As long as it's a top player, they will spend a lot of money to poach them into their team. It's precisely because their team's configuration is quite luxurious, and almost every player has won the honorary title of the most valuable esports player. That's why they're called Pantheon. At this point, Mingdu did not forget to flatter Wang Yu and said, "But this time, I think you're very likely to be noticed by the boss of Pantheon, Old Cow." Haha. Wang Yu faced Mingdu's flattery. Wang Yu smiled slightly and thought to himself, could it be that the group of experts I met in the game not long ago are from Pantheon? Just as Wang Yu's thoughts were running wild, he suddenly heard a deep voice. "It's you." Wang Yu heard the voice and quickly looked up. He saw a big man with blonde hair who was about the same size as him pointing at him with a face full of surprise. Although the big man looked very unfamiliar, Wang Yu felt that he had seen him somewhere before. "Do we know each other?" Wang Yu asked, puzzled. "Me?" the big man said excitedly in rusty Mandarin. "I'm Uranus, Pantheon. We've met before." Uranus. Hearing the name, Wang Yu finally thought of something and said, "So, it's you. You're much more handsome in the game than you are now." Ha ha! Uranus laughed awkwardly and said, "We need to pay attention to our image." Wasn't that right? Esports stars were still stars. As a top-tier professional like Uranus, personal image in the game was still very important. After all, appearance was the face of the club. It was not good to leave one's name in the history books if one was ugly. "You're here to watch our match too?" Uranus then asked Wang Yu. "No." Wang Yu shook his head and said, "I'm here to take part in the competition." "Take part in the competition?" Uranus was shocked and said, "I didn't expect Team 9 States to have an expert like you. It looks like we're going to have a hard time in this competition." Uranus was a top-tier professional. Team 9 States was one of the teams that he was interested in. Birds of a feather flocked together. With Wang Yu's powerful strength and being from China, Uranus definitely thought that she was from the Kyushu Kingdom's team. "I'm not from Team 9 States." Wang Yu shook his head again. Chapter 1855. "Then you're from BTR?" Alanos was surprised. "I didn't expect you to speak Mandarin so well." "I'm Chinese." Wang Yu was speechless. "I'm from the Motley Crew. These are my teammates." As he spoke, Wang Yu pointed at Wuji and the others. On the other hand, Wuji and company were dumbstruck as they stared at Wang Yu. They were so shocked that they couldn't speak. "You guys know each other?" Wuji asked Wang Yu in surprise after he recovered from the shock. Logically speaking, even though Wang Yu was extremely skilled, in the eyes of Wuji and the others, Wang Yu was just a noob with strong gaming skills. Not to mention being a famous person in the esports circle, even when it came to gaming, Wang Yu only had a smattering of knowledge. They did not expect this seemingly stupid guy to know people from Pantheon. Looking at the situation, Wang Yu seemed to be quite familiar with people from Pantheon. "Yes," Wang Yu nodded indifferently. "We fought not long ago." "Which one did you hit?" Wuji asked curiously. "All of them," Wang Yu said with certainty. "Awesome." The people of Quan Jun sect gave him a thumbs up and praised him from the bottom of their hearts. As expected of the Ox God, even when he fought against the best professional players in the world, he would always fight with his own team. Motley Crew. After knowing which team Wang Yu belonged to, Alanos was no less surprised than Wuji and the others. As a top professional player, Alanos had done his homework on the major teams before coming. He had naturally heard of this Motley Crew. However, according to the rumors, this Motley Crew did not have a good reputation. This was a group of unorthodox players. Not only were they a grassroots amateur team, but their fighting style was also extremely unorthodox. The strength of their players was nothing to write home about, but they were all shameless and had hundreds of strange tricks up their sleeves. They were very eye-catching in the information of the major teams. That was why Uranus had some impression of this team. The social circle of online games was more realistic than reality. Those who could hang out together were basically all experts of the same level. After all, in reality, two people with different incomes could still find similar goals. But in the game, most people's goals were to become stronger. If players wanted to become stronger, they needed to obtain resources. Whether it was quests or dungeons, players of different levels would not be able to play in the same world. Uranus had witnessed Wang Yu's strength. Although none of the Pantheon members had used their full strength in their previous clash, Uranus could tell that Wang Yu was holding back. It had only been 2 rounds, but Alano's team had already felt an unprecedented sense of pressure. Wang Yu's strength was evident. Such a powerful guy was actually in the same team as a bunch of amateurs. Was the team's information just nonsense, or were these guys hiding their terrifying strength and deliberately throwing out a smokescreen? "Not bad," Wang Yu said with a smile. "Compared to them, I'm just a newbie. If it weren't for them, I probably wouldn't have been able to come to this arena." Newbie. Uranus and the others who had just calmed down were once again thrown into a state of turmoil. An expert like Wang Yu was only a newbie in front of this group of people. Didn't it mean that these guys were even stronger? Had the standard of the local players reached such a high level? Could it be that they had been looking at the sky from the bottom of a well? At this thought, Uranus and the others felt a chill down their spines. One had to know that Rebirth was a brand new game mode. After playing the game for so long, Uranus and the others had encountered many experts who had turned the tables because of the new mode. Now that they heard that there was someone stronger than them, they did not dare to doubt it. After all, the world was full of strange things, and esports players were ultimately just ordinary people. Of course, this was only wishful thinking on Uranus' part. The newbie that Wang Yu mentioned was referring to the game level, while Uranus and the others understood it to be in terms of strength. This could only be said to be a misunderstanding. Not at all. Seeing Uranus' expression, Wuji immediately realized that this group of people had misunderstood. Hence, he quickly explained, "Don't listen to his nonsense. It's not what you think. Actually, we are also your fans." It would have been better if Wuji had not said this. After listening to Wuji's explanation, Uranus was even more convinced of the motley crew's hidden strength. He had long known that the Chinese had a deep tradition of not revealing their strength, but now he had truly witnessed it. Seeing that Uranus was only willing to believe what he wanted to believe, Wuji could not do anything about it. After Wang Yu and Uranus casually chatted for a while, the Chuanjin crew left the arena. Looking at the backs of Wang Yu and the others, Uranus frowned and said, "It seems that this competition will not be as easy as I imagined." Yeah, Ares also said, "Look at how arrogant they are walking. They must be very confident in their strength. Don't scare yourselves. Pantheon's contestants were top-notch masters, after all, and there were still people who understood." Seeing that his teammates were scared by a few words, Rocky said speechlessly, "From the previous battle video, this group of people's strength is very average. Only those two Grandmasters of Combat are slightly stronger." "That Grandmaster Combat seems to have said that he's a newbie," Ares retorted. "You stupid donkey. I can even say that I'm your father." Rocky rolled his eyes in disdain and said, "Do you believe me? I'm your father. You stupid donkey." Ares was furious. "Look," Rocky spread his hands and said, "We're so close, but you don't believe what I say. Are you very close to him?" Hearing Rocky's words, Ares, who was initially excited, was suddenly speechless. At this time, Rocky continued, "That kid is just bluffing." No. Uranus waved his hand and said, "When he said that, I felt that his eyes were very sincere. He didn't look like he was lying. What Wang Yu said was not a lie. It was just that Uranus had misunderstood her. Wang Yu was not being sincere." At this point, Uranus pondered for a moment and said, "There's an old saying in Huaxia. It's called being silent. Oh no, it's better to believe it than not. Anyway, this is a motley crew. We have to be careful." "Hee." Rocky laughed and said, "Boss, you're too cautious. They're just a bunch of bugs. Since you said so, then let me dispel your worries." "Rocky." Uranus was shocked when he heard that. "You must not provoke them." "Don't worry," Rocky said with a smile. "Don't you know what I do?" Chapter 1856. Just as Uranus and the others were about to continue walking into the venue, the teams for today's competition also walked out of the venue one after another. The team walking at the front was the free team from Country A. "Hey, old friends, long time no see." Seeing the free team players walking out of the venue, Rocky welcomed them enthusiastically with open arms. The professional esports circle was only so big. As the world's top veteran teams, they were very familiar with each other. "Look who this is. Is it Rocky?" Seeing Rocky greeting them not far away, the free team members also stopped in their tracks. The player in the lead said excitedly, "When did you come? Did you see our competition?" "Sorry, Brother Wade, my little spider." Rocky pretended to be guilty and said, "I could have made it to the last match, but I ran into a few old acquaintances when I came in. Unfortunately, I missed it." "Old acquaintances?" The guy called Wade was startled when he heard that. He asked with some puzzlement, "What kind of old acquaintances made you miss our free team's competition?" Of course, it's also the participating team this time. Speaking of this, the expression on Rocky's face turned into a look of worship, and he said excitedly, "They may be the strongest opponents of our pantheon in this competition." "The strongest team?" Wade tilted his head and asked with a face full of doubt, "Which team can get such a high evaluation from Pantheon?" Although Wade's tone was curious, There was a hint of unwillingness in it. However, this was also reasonable. Everyone was a top expert, and everyone was very confident in their own strength. Even Pantheon did not dare to say that they could win against other teams. As the previous champion team, Pantheon was naturally the imaginary enemy of all the top teams. Wade did not know how many times he had practiced with Pantheon just to be able to compete with Pantheon in this arena. Pantheon's strongest opponent? Rocky's words were obviously saying that if the free team wanted to be a strong opponent of Pantheon, they had to stand aside. There was another team that was stronger than the free team. Wade was certainly not convinced by this. It's a motley crew, Rocky said. Haven't you heard of them? These guys are quite powerful. A motley crew? Just them? Wade laughed out loud when he heard that Loki's formidable opponent turned out to be a motley crew. Old buddy, is your Pantheon not adapting to this new game mode? You actually think that that kind of stinky bug is a formidable opponent? Right now, the motley crew was infamous. Not only did the entire world know of this group of shameless players, but even the professional team circle had heard of this group style. Of course, Wade had heard of this team that cheated in the professional arena. No. Rocky waved his hand and said, "Don't let pride and prejudice cloud your judgment. Some things have to be experienced before you can speak. Is that so? Could it be that your Pantheon has fought with them?" Wade asked with a sneer. "Of course," Rocky said. "They just enjoy the fun of playing with the enemy in the palm of their hands. Do you think they are weak if they can play with the top masters in the palm of their hands?" Hearing Rocky's words, Wade was slightly startled, and then still disdainfully said, "It's just a low-level trick." Seeing Wade take the bait, Rocky laughed in his heart and said mysteriously, "They are all Chinese people and no kung fu." Kung fu? Ha ha ha. If Rocky didn't say this, Wade might have believed Rocky's nonsense. But when he heard the word kung fu, Wade suddenly laughed mercilessly. Kung fu? You watch too many movies. It's just a bunch of soft-handed guys. Since the myth of kung fu was shattered by scammers, the word kung fu has not only been sneered at home, but has also become a big joke internationally. Wade couldn't help laughing when he heard the word kung fu. You don't believe it. Rocky struck while the iron was hot. With your free team, you will definitely lose if you meet them. It had to be said that Loki really lived up to his name. He was as treacherous as the mythical Loki. Flattering one and trampling on another was the most basic means of sowing discord. The free team and others were not convinced by anyone. At this time, being trampled on by Rocky, Wade's anger jumped up. "Who do you think will lose?" Wade asked angrily. "Ha!" Rocky said with a smile. "Old man, I'm just giving you a reminder. Don't get agitated. No matter how bad your temper is on the field, it still depends on your strength." "Oomph." Wade snorted coldly and glared at Rocky. "Don't look down on people. I'll let you see who will lose and who will win the game the day after tomorrow. Don't take it too hard." Rocky pretended to dissuade them again. "Are you in such a hurry to go home?" The onlooker sees the game more clearly. Rocky's words were obviously fanning the flames, but none of the angry free team members could hear it. "Get lost." Wade glared at Rocky, pushed him away violently, and left the venue with an unhappy look on his face. Seeing that Wade had taken the bait, Rocky returned to the team with a smirk and said to everyone, "Did you see that? We'll soon know how strong those guys are." Everyone from Pantheon. The next day was the European servers competition. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Although there was no competition today, the players of the major teams had also arrived at the venue early. How could watching battle videos compare to the feeling of being on the battlefield? Compared to the top teams, the motley crew's strength was somewhat lacking. Naturally, they had to put more effort into tactics. Especially since the European server had top teams like Templar and Pantheon, Wuji, and the others had to find the right medicine and study the tactics of these opponents. "You guys are the motley crew, right?" Just as Wang Yu and the others were sitting in the audience seats and waiting for the teams to enter the venue, they suddenly heard someone speaking in broken Mandarin behind them. Hearing that, everyone from Xuanjin hurriedly turned around and saw a row of black-skinned and white-skinned spectators sitting behind them. These spectators had agreed to wear blue and white t-shirts with the word "free" printed on them. Free team. Wang Yu and the others had also watched the competition yesterday. After seeing the spectators behind them, they immediately recognized the identity of the spectators behind them. Wuji was even more shameless as he boasted. "Did you see that? Our names have spread all over the world. Even the top professional team players know us." Hearing that, Wang Yu and the others were instantly speechless, as expected of the leader of Chuanjin. If one wanted to talk about shamelessness, one had to look at Wuji. Did he not know what kind of reputation he had? Chapter 1857. Seeing how shameless Wuji was, the freestyle team members were also shocked. The words they wanted to say were immediately stuffed back into their mouths by Wuji. Damn it, was there such a shameless person in the world? After being stunned for a few seconds, Wade said with a disdainful face, "Don't flatter yourself. I'm not in the mood to understand amateurs like you. The only reason I know you is because someone mentioned you." Speaking up to this point, Wade looked down at the Chuanjin team condescendingly and said, "I heard that your team has a grandmaster of combat who is not weak. Which one is it?" Hearing Wade's words, the Chuanjin team looked at Wang Yu in unison. "Oh." Following the Chuanjin team's gaze, Wade's eyes fell on Wang Yu, and he immediately said with a face full of mockery, "I heard that you know Kung Fu." Wang Yu naturally heard the mocking tone in Wade's words, and Wang Yu really didn't have a good impression of this overbearing foreigner. But they were all contestants in this competition, and because of etiquette, Wang Yu nodded very modestly and said, "I practiced in the countryside for a few years." Ha ha! Hearing Wang Yu say this, Wade was immediately amused. He turned his head and laughed loudly to his companions in a foreign language. "Did you see that? He really knows Kung Fu. It's so interesting." Wuji's Chun Xiang and Bao San were both top students and intellectuals. Naturally, they understood Wade's words, and their faces darkened in an instant. Although Wang Yu didn't understand what Wade said, he could see from the expression on Wade's face that he didn't seem to have said anything good, so he frowned and asked Wuji, "What did he say?" That, of course, Wuji knew the temperament of Wang Yu, and evildoers run wild. Although Wang Yu treated people modestly, he was also extremely unyielding. His affection for Kung Fu was comparable to the affection he had for his wife. Needless to say, evildoers run wild was even more arrogant and despotic. Even if he had nothing better to do, he would still look for trouble. If the two of them knew what Wade was talking about, there would be trouble. After hesitating for a while, Wuji said with some difficulty, "Old cow, this grandson is laughing at you. Don't be rash." "I know." Wang Yu nodded indifferently and said, "Everyone is here to compete. It's not good for anyone to cause a violent incident. If there's anything, just settle on the field. It's good that you understand. It's good that you understand." Seeing that Wang Yu was so reasonable, Wuji breathed a sigh of relief. Hee hee. At this time, Wade turned his head again and asked with a mischievous smile, "China boxing, is it the kind of soft hands and feet?" Well, in a foreign language, only a few people in Chuanjin could understand it, but in Chinese, everyone could hear it clearly. For a moment, everyone in Chuanjin's eyes fell on Wade, as if they were looking at a dead man. There was a reason why there were few foreigners. This Chinese man fully showed the Chuanjin people his level of seeking death. Of all people to provoke, he had to provoke the most terrifying one in Chuanjin. Of course, Wang Yu was a grandmaster, and his state of mind was still very detached. In the face of Wade's verbal provocation, Wang Yu said expressionlessly, "What kind of boxing can't be practiced well? It's all soft hands and feet." "Is that so?" Wade stretched out his hand, grabbed Wang Yu's arm, pointed to his face, and said, "Then let me see if your fist is soft or not." Humph! With his arm grabbed by Wade's big hand, Wang Yu snorted coldly and exerted a little force. "Pah!" Wade suddenly felt his palms sink, as if he had grabbed an incomparably heavy iron rod, and subconsciously let go, letting Wang Yu pull his hand back. Wang Yu turned his head and looked calmly at Wade. "Don't worry, there will be a chance." I'm just afraid you'll regret meeting me. Oh, F asterisk CK. Listen to what he's saying. As soon as Wang Yu said this, Wade immediately exploded. What was arrogance? This was arrogance. As one of the world's top teams, the Free Team was so strong that even a team like Pantheon, which was full of big names, could not guarantee that they could win. As the captain of the Free Team, Spider Wade certainly had unparalleled strength and confidence. I'm afraid you'll regret meeting me. People who dared to say such things to the world's top professional players were either ignorant newcomers or arrogant madmen. Wade had played games for so many years, and this was the first time he had been said such things. His mood could be imagined. Arrogant, too arrogant. The teammates behind Wade could not help but laugh when they heard this. They drew a cross in front of their chest with a mocking expression and shouted exaggeratedly, "May God forgive their ignorance. You guys are so annoying. If you want to watch, then watch the game quietly. If you don't want to watch, then get out." Wang Yu had a good temper, but it did not mean that everyone in Xuanzhen was good-tempered. Evildoer Rampage was Wang Yu's #1 fangirl. At this moment, seeing Wang Yu being mocked, Evildoer Rampage was the first to lose it as he stood up. Mingdu, who was next to Evildoer's Run Wild, silently picked up 2 unopened beer bottles and handed one to Exquisite Dream. For a moment, the atmosphere at the scene was cold to the extreme, and there was an atmosphere of fighting at the slightest disagreement. Hee hee. The people from a Free Team were naturally not fools. Of course, they knew the consequences if the two sides really fought. In their eyes, the motley crew was just a group of reptiles. It was naturally not worth dying with these reptiles. Wade smiled and said, "This is the competition venue. Don't even think about dragging us down. Don't worry, I will teach you a good lesson in tomorrow's game." After saying that, Wade waved his hand at the opponents behind him, and the Free Team got up and left their seats. How inexplicable. Looking at the backs of the Free Team leaving, Exquisite Dream casually put the beer bottle in her hand on the ground. Her expression was as if she had eaten a dead fly. Not only Exquisite Dream, but the rest of Xuanzhen was also confused. The Free Team suddenly came out to provoke them and then left in a hurry. It was really confusing. They did not know these guys at all, and there was no hatred between them. Could it be that the Free Team and the Arilang team were wearing the same pants? Were they here to seek revenge for the Arilang team? Chun Xiang was puzzled and asked, "Old cow, did you beat them too?" "Definitely not." Before Wang Yu could say anything, Wu Ji, who was at the side, rejected Chun Xiang's idea. "You seem to be very self-confident." Chun Xiang raised his eyebrows and was unconvinced. "Nonsense." Wu Ji rolled his eyes at Chun Xiang and said, "If they were beaten by the old cow, do you think they would dare to take the initiative to provoke us?" Chun Xiang was stunned when he heard Wu Ji's words. He quickly nodded and said, "That's true, that's true." Chapter 1858. But I don't know them at all. Wang Yu was also puzzled. It was obvious that the freelance team was here for Wang Yu. Wang Yu dared to guarantee that he definitely did not know these guys. "Since you don't know them, they must have heard of you from someone else." Wu Ji rubbed his chin and said, "You should know people from Pantheon among the professional players overseas, right?" "Yes." Wang Yu nodded. "That makes sense." Wu Ji said confidently, "It must be the people from Pantheon. These idiots from the freelance team didn't even know that they were being used." Without the underhanded and cunning tactics of the motley crew, the competition on the European server went on very smoothly. Even though all the teams in the competition were top-notch players, it was hard to tell who was better. However, soon enough, 3 teams advanced to the next round. Other than the All-Star team, Pantheon, the second team to advance was called the King, Emperor team. As for the last team to advance, it was considered an old acquaintance of Xuanzhen. It was the team that had hunted down Xuanzhen before, the Templar team. This group of people from the Templar team was considered very valiant, but it was not easy for them to advance. It could be seen that the standard of the European servers teams was strong. It was obviously a level higher than the previous battle of the Asia server. Of course, it was not to say that the standard of the Asia servers teams was low. The main thing was that the home team was a solo player. In the esports industry, Their strength could not keep up with the top-notch players. At the end of the competition, the 9 qualified teams from the 3 major servers had been confirmed. They were the Motley Crew, 9 States, and BTR teams from the Asia server, the Rebellious team, Freelance team, and Sci-Fi team from the American server, as well as Pantheon, Emperor, and Templar from the European server. Other than the Motley Crew that Wang Yu was part of, these 9 teams were the world's top veteran first-rate teams. Pantheon, BTR, and 9 States had occupied the top 3 positions in the esports industry for several years in a row. Logically speaking, although the Chuanjin fellows were all extremely daring and arrogant, they couldn't help but feel a little diffident when faced with such a big scene. Being arrogant also required strength. Chuanjin's group was naturally outstanding in front of other players, but in front of these professional experts, they were still lacking. Everyone present was a world-class expert, and many of them were once their idols. It felt like an amateur football expert was suddenly dragged to the World Cup to play with those top stars. It was a very subtle feeling. As soon as they returned to the hotel, everyone in Chuanjin frowned. Chuanjin had also come into contact with these top teams. Although the 9 provinces battle team was once defeated by them, everyone naturally knew how they won. If it weren't for Wang Yu, this BUG, the experts of the 9 regions team, could easily beat up the people of Chuanjin. As for the Templar team, they had once chased Chuanjin to the ends of the earth. Thinking of being chased by this group of bastards, everyone still had a shadow in their hearts. Now, there were a total of 9 opponents of this level, and they would be playing tomorrow. It would be bragging to say that they didn't feel any pressure. After all, this group of people in Chuanjin was a realist. They knew better than anyone that no matter how thick one's thigh was, it wouldn't be as strong as one's own strength. In the face of so many strong opponents, it was reasonable that they didn't feel confident. How are we going to play tomorrow? Old dog Wuji, why don't you learn from other teams and deploy them? This group of people in Chuanjin was really anxious. In normal competitions, other teams would have to analyze their opponents and make various deployments before the competition. Chuanjin only cared about eating, drinking, and playing, and never thought about these things. At this time, seeing that Wuji just sat there drinking tea and watching TV without saying a word, everyone began to criticize the incompetent advisor Wuji for being irresponsible. Deploy my ass. Wuji rolled his eyes and said, "The difference in strength is too big. What's the use of tactical deployment? You're talking as if you can win by cheating." F***CK. After being despised by Wuji, everyone was so angry that they grimaced and said, "Then you should at least analyze the opponent." "There's no need to analyze." Wuji waved his hand and said, "Haven't we seen the free teams competition? We'll observe how the others play tomorrow." Free team? How do you know that our opponent tomorrow is the free team? To place one's pride was puzzled. Nonsense. Wuji looked at To Place One's Pride as if he was looking at an idiot and said, "Chick, you've been with us for so long. Why haven't you improved at all? Today, the free team took the initiative to provoke us. Tomorrow, will they let us fight with other teams first?" Speaking up to this point, Wuji said again, "This group of people in Pantheon has fought with Old Cow before. They know that Old Cow is not easy to deal with, so they deliberately let the free team walk into our trap. So, tomorrow, we must show them what we're made of. Not hiding your strength anymore." To Place One's Pride asked again. "Oh my God." Wuji covered his face with one hand and touched To Place One's Pride's head with the other. He was speechless and said, "What kind of F***king brain is this? We're not their opponent even if we go all out, and you still want to hide your strength? What are you thinking?" Then, during the elimination round, that's called strategy. Show the enemy that we're weak, understand? Wuji sighed and said, using the same move twice, "Do you think everyone is as cute as you? Bah, you're the cute one. Your whole family is cute." To Place One's Pride was furious. Ahem. Baosan coughed and said coldly, "Chick, watch your words. You can scold him, but don't drag me into it." To Place One's Pride was speechless. Wuji's words were very reasonable. Based on the strength of the Motley Crew To be able to fight their way out of the elimination round was already their limit. If they wanted to go further, they would basically be at a level where they couldn't reach the highest level. Under such circumstances, they had to be prepared for every match, because the current opponents were not the same as before. If they were not careful, they could lose a normal match. As for the previous tactics of hiding experts like Wang Yu to preserve their strength, it was obvious that it would no longer be effective in this situation. Instead of hiding their strength, it was better to bluff. This way, those teams who planned to step on a motley crew to advance would have to weigh their own strength. It was unknown whether it was because they were overly nervous or to ensure that they had sufficient energy and stamina, but after dinner, the otakus of Chuanjin's sect did not play games for the first time. Instead, they returned to their rooms early to rest. After a quiet night, the next morning, everyone entered the competition venue under the reception of the staff. After a round of competition, the S-Rank World Professional League finally officially kicked off. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.